2022. So please take help of our IMA staff if you are in need of. So thank you. With all, I will request our President, Dr. B.L. Deshmukh, to give his speech for the
नमस्कार. लाभले आम्हास भाग्य बोलतो मराठी जाहलो धन्य ऐकतो मराठी. आज 27 फेब्रुवारी
मराठी राज्यभाषा दिवस की जो आपण कविवर्य विवा शिरवाडकर तथा कुसुमाग्रज
यांच्या नावाने साजरा करतो. तसेच आज डॉक्टर अजित गोळविलकर यांचा पण वाढदिवस. दोघेही आपापल्या क्षेत्रातले दिग्गज. पुण्यात एजी डायग्नोस्टिक नावाची नामवंत लॅब आहे. ती आता डॉक्टर अजित गोळवलकर यांच्या सोबत मुली व त्यांचे सहकारी समर्थपणे चालवत आहेत. अजित गोळविलकर हे स्पेशलाइज लॅब की त्या काळी पुण्यात इतर ठिकाणी न होणाऱ्या टेस्ट त्यांच्याकडे नक्की होत असतात. He was pioneer in specialized tests. माझ्या मते पॅथॉलॉजी अँड रेडिओलॉजी हे वैद्यकीय व्यवसायाचे दोन महत्वाचे अंग आहेत की ज्याच्यामुळे आपल्या निदानाला बळकटी येते किंवा निदान कन्फर्म होतं. मी एकदा माझ्या पेशंटला ची महागडी टेस्ट करून घेण्यासाठी पेशंट बरोबर गेलो होतो. ब्लड घेतल्यावर ते आपणहून म्हणाले, डॉक्टर रुग्ण गरीब दिसतोय, मी त्याला 50% कन्सेशन देतो. हे त्यांनी न मागता सुद्धा दिले. ते अतिशय सभ्य व कनवाळू डॉक्टर होते. त्यांच्या स्मृतीस वंदन करून मी माझे छोटेसे मनोगत संपवतो. आजची सीएमई ठरवण्यात डॉक्टर जयंत नवरंगे यांचे खूप परिश्रम झालेले आहेत व त्यांच्या परिश्रमातून आजची सीएमई आहे. आणि इथून पुढे दरवर्षी अशा प्रकारची सीएमई आणि ओरेशन होईल असं गोळविलकर कुटुंबापेक्षा त्यांनी सांगितलेलं आहे. थँक्यू.
Thank you, sir. Now I will request Dr. Avanti Golwilker to come on the dais, and she'll be introducing Dr. N. Jayaram, our first speaker. So I'll introduce Dr. Avanti Golwilker. She, as for her request, I am just telling very few sentences about her. She was Director and Chief of Laboratories, Golwilker Metropolis Health Services Private Limited, Pune, from 2004 to 2017, and AG Diagnostic Private Limited is a state-of-the-art laboratory providing diverse test menu and catering to over 1,000 customers per day. Its employee strength is over 250 trained personnel. So she is a Director and Chief of Laboratories from 2018 till today. With this short introduction, I will call Dr. Avanti Golwilker to introduce our speaker, Dr. N. Jayaram. Over to Dr. Avanti Golwilker.
Thank you, madam. Good morning, all. I welcome you all on behalf of IMA Pune and AG Diagnostics Private Limited, Pune, for this academic feast. Today, we are going to begin with the title is Excellence in Healthcare, and most of the speakers are going to, in a way, tell how that excellence is achieved, and while achieving that excellence, what are the challenges one faces. Our first speaker is Dr. N. Jayaram, and he is going to deliver his talk on customer satisfaction and beyond, drivers of laboratory services and operational excellence. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce Dr. Jayaram Iyengar. He is Managing Director of Newburgh Anand Reference Laboratory in Bangalore and Newburgh Anand Academy of Laboratory Medicine. He has done his MD Pathology from PGI Chandigarh way back in 1987 and was awarded a silver medal then. He is an academician at heart and has bagged Excellence in Teaching Award at JNMC Belgaum in the year 2000. He has been awarded several other awards like the Ernest Fernandez Award by Academy of Indian Cytologists and has many orations to his name. He is a member of Indian Association of Pathologists and Microbiologists, in International Academy of Pathologists, Hemophilia Society of India, and so on and so forth. He is a certified NABL lead assessor and has been on editorial board of several journals, including the Journal of Cytology, Indian Journal of Pathology and Microbiology. He has authored or co-authored 42 publications and delivered several talks, over 250 talks. Dr. Jairam, I welcome you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Avanti, and a very good morning to all of you. And I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And greetings to the 140 odd people who have tuned in at this moment. So I shall share my screen and proceed from now on. Okay, I suppose you can all see my the full screen.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I begin by offering my humble pranams to Dr. Ajit Golwilker, a person whom I immensely respect, and we've lost him at a very early time. And of course, Dr. Jayant Abhyankar, I've known him long ago, and both are wonderful people. Now, the way we practice, as you have seen over the years, seems to be shifting from the thought process where the physician used to do what he or she feels is the best in the interest of a patient. From there, we moved to a situation where the patient is replaced by the concept of a customer, and we as physicians and the diagnosticians, we are trying to understand what the expectations of the customer are and how we need to put our efforts. Hello. Can this echo stop, please? So how we practice to exceed expectations of the customer. So this is the title of my topic: customer service and beyond, customer satisfaction and beyond, and how the laboratory brings in certain processes to meet the expectations of the customer and at times even exceed the expectations of the customer. And that is the whole concept of service and operational excellence. So the plan of my talk, next 40 minutes, would be briefly telling you about the changing perspectives and perceptions of laboratory medicine, and elaborate in detail about the concept of the laboratory value pyramid, which forms the kind of a foundation on grading a level of the expectation performance of the lab and so on. And finally, talk about the future domain of the diagnostic laboratory. I, at this point, would like to disclose that source of the material, large parts of the material is in-house and based on our own data and experiences. A few of the flowcharts, diagrams have been taken from the internet. Patient confidentiality has been protected to the maximum. So speaking about the changing perspectives or the paradigms of the laboratory, the early years, laboratories were actually run and managed by physicians who many a times by themselves used to perform simple laboratory tests to confirm, mainly to confirm their clinical diagnosis. Over the years, the changes have happened both in the way in which laboratories have evolved and the way in which the physicians have kind of perceived the position of the laboratory. The specialization of people who run the laboratory in laboratory medicine. All these things have happened over the years. 21st century has thrown a number of challenges to the laboratory. First of all, laboratory service, like any other medical service, has now taken on the form of an industry, the healthcare industry. Recently, there was an interesting article where a physician was kind of lamenting, almost lamenting on how things have changed from service-oriented to business-oriented practice. And he made very few pertinent points where he said, the moment you refer to a patient as a customer, and the moment you refer to your clinic as your office, that is a time when your service has turned into a business. Changes are inevitable. And in the current scenario, we need to see how we can provide the best possible service to our customers who are our patients to the best of our ability under the current circumstances. We'll not talk about merits and demerits of being a service-oriented or a business-oriented enterprise. Now, since we are moving towards business management and so on, it seems to be inevitable that most of our organizations start getting managed by people who come from the business background, the CEOs, CEOs, CFOs, and so on. So there is automatically an increased pressure on cost containment. There is an increased demand from science point of view itself. There is an increased demand to keep pace with the developments because it's a very, very fast developing and fast evolving science. Then increased pressure on error reduction with the fear of litigation, with the requirement of accreditation, and so on and so forth. There is always an increased pressure on error reduction. Then, of course, to smoothen our own processes, we need to consolidate. To improve our efficiency, we need to automate the processes. And with all this comes an increased dependence on information technology. Now, we cannot imagine a lab to work efficiently without computers. We cannot expect a lab to function efficiently without a laboratory information system. So IT becomes an integral part of the laboratory's functioning. The need for evidence-based management puts an increased pressure on the number of investigations that have to be carried out to actually give evidence to the clinical suspicion which the physician has got. And the changing expectations of the end user. Earlier, the doctor was God, and whatever the doctor did, the patient accepted, saying that it is in my best interest. But today, we are dealing with a customer, we are dealing with a consumer who is aware of his or her rights and who perceives the physician as a provider of service, and the customer or a consumer is paying for the service. So again, expectations vary, range right up to sky high expectations. So these changing expectations throws a number of challenges at the laboratory. We should now realize that with the current availability of equipment, with the current standardization of methodology, and the accreditation, which most of the labs are going for accreditation, with all these, we realize that majority of the laboratories have improved in their performance and they are almost similar to each other in their performance. Now, what becomes a differentiator between a good lab and an excellent lab? That is the value add which the laboratory would provide. So the differentiator lies in the value add that the lab provides and the amount of value added services, the type of value added services provided by the lab defines the reputation of the lab. And it is very important that the lab needs to benchmark against its own performances and ensure that there is an improvement day after day, time after time. So in essence, the laboratory professional has moved from the dungeons to a more visible position. Now, if you imagine after really rewriting the book, Final Diagnosis all over again, I'm sure he would move the laboratory from the basement to a more visible and a more prominent position in his hospital. So that is the way in which the laboratories have become more and more visible. The laboratory and the professional has moved from a passive role, which was often submissive, to an active partner. We used to hear a lot of situations where, especially the junior pathologists who run laboratories and the smaller laboratories, they're actually scared to offer any suggestions or advice to the physicians. No offense meant. That was the way in which it was perceived, because if they would say, the physician would get angry and tell the pathologist, you don't tell me what I have to do. Just give me your report. I will manage what I have to do in my own way. That seems to have changed over the years, and the laboratory and the professional has now been sought after as a consultant. With the evidence-based medicine, with the precision medicine, physicians in the right manner depend more and more on the laboratory for additional information as to how they can manage the patient and deliver patient care better. So the laboratory is kind of a partner in the modern healthcare delivery. So if we take the laboratory as a business unit, if we take the laboratory as a service provider, it has a number of customers. So the customer footprint of a laboratory is primarily the physician who refers the patient or refers the patient samples to the laboratory for testing. It is the patient themselves. Now, all these are now called customers. Thirdly, it is the community. We owe it to the community. We need to bring out mechanisms, bring out data that is going to help the community at large. I think the pandemic, which we have gone through and probably would be going through multiple times again, is a clear example how laboratory information can help in shaping up the healthcare delivery to the community. And last but not the least, the staff of the physician, the staff working, not the staff of the laboratory. Indirectly, they are also our customers. Our own staff in our laboratory have certain expectations from the management. Now, a good management would meet these expectations. A good management or a better management would at times exceed the expectations of the staff, because it brings in a win-win situation. Even if you take the pandemic, the first wave, second wave, third wave, I can say with pride that during the first wave, when we were still grappling with the situation, grappling with information as to how we need to manage COVID, how we need to contain infection from spreading, we could manage the entire first wave with full, working, the entire lab was working, and we had only a small micro cluster in our stores department. So that way we could manage and definitely exceed expectations of our staff who are coming, exposing themselves at risk, but we provided them with a safe environment that they did not carry the infection home from the laboratory. So this is roughly the customer footprint of the laboratory. The importance of a customer was recognized by none other than Deming. Deming is actually looked upon by most of the laboratory people as the father of the modern concepts of quality to the laboratory and to the industry as such, because Deming was responsible for the entire industrial revolution in Japan. So what Deming said was quality is defined by the satisfaction of the customers. Then, of course, the CLSI and other guidelines are not far behind. CLSI defines 12 essential quality management system essentials, and customer service is one of the 12 essentials of an efficient quality management system. So we recognize that customer is pivotal to the functioning of a laboratory, and customer service is pivotal to the growth of the laboratory. With this, we go to the concept of laboratory value pyramids. Laboratory value pyramids is nothing but stacking up different processes, different ways of functioning at different levels, which help the laboratory achieve different objectives in its own service to the customer. If you take level 1, which is the base of the laboratory value pyramid, most of the laboratories who are entering the level 1 of the value pyramid already have mechanisms in place where they detect errors. And once the error has happened, they do a root cause analysis and bring in mechanisms to ensure that the same error does not repeat. Now we need to, and laboratories move to the next level of error management. They move from error detection to actually predicting the error before it has happened and prevent the error from happening at all. So that way, you need not go back to correct what mistakes you have done if you can prevent the mistake totally. So that involves a lot of analysis of the workflow processes. It involves a lot of risk management. It involves a lot of micromanagement of each processes to see what can possibly go wrong in the process. And that brings in a good preventive environment. It also involves the involvement of the improvement matrix or the key performance indices, or what we call as the quality indicators. And these quality indicators need to be defined. They need to be measured, analyzed, and that should happen alongside the quality control data. So KPI and QC both need to go hand in hand, and there should be a culture of continual improvement. And at this point, the labs may not necessarily have the know-how to improve the processes, and they may also choose to engage external experts to help them in aligning the processes into an environment of prevention rather than a correction or a corrective action. We should all realize that despite what measures we take, no laboratory is bereft of errors. There is no laboratory which can say that I am a zero error laboratory. The potential areas where errors can happen are many, but roughly to bunch them into two major areas, errors can happen in situations where things are being done day in and day out, routine repetitive activities, well-known repetitive activities like registration, pipetting, and all so on and so forth, running the same test over and over again. Still, there can be errors because the person performing the test is simply tired, overworked, or there may be a lot of interruptions. The environment which we have set is not free of interruptions. There could be distractions, pressure of time, people breathing down your neck for a report to be released, the boss waiting for some other reports to be, or document reviews to be completed, and so on. So there is a time pressure. Anxiety could be one, depending on kind of environment, fear, or sheer boredom. Doing the same activity over and over again may make a person complacent, inattentive, and that increases the scope for error in the laboratory. Errors can happen also in certain well-set sequential complex problem-solving activities where they need to do a lot of interpretation and come to conclusions. So errors can happen there because of simple misinterpretation, lack of knowledge, and lack of proper training. So these are situations where errors can happen. They are part and parcel of our laboratory practice. And we have to realize that the humans have intellectual strengths and limitations, and we need to bring in mechanisms where we respect the human abilities, understand their limitations, and bring in processes that overcome these deficiencies and automate to a large extent so that processes can become more error-free and seamless. So that is where laboratories bring in a lot of checkpoints in their entire workflow process, because an error is an error and is a risk only if that error goes out from the laboratory to the customer in the form of a wrong report. Knowing fully well that there are multiple errors which happen on a day-to-day basis, a good laboratory would bring in multiple mechanisms to check if there is an error, immediately identified and corrected. So there will be multiple checkpoints. Now, we also realize that despite having multiple checkpoints, still there are some odd errors that escape through all the checkpoints, because each and every checkpoint has a loophole. It has a weak point. And if, unfortunately for you and for your customer or the patient, if all these weak points align, then the entire error would pass through the laboratory. So this phenomenon is what is called as a Swiss cheese effect. Swiss cheese has a lot of holes in it. Now, if all the holes you put together, then you can see through and through the Swiss cheese. Similarly, the error sees multiple holes and goes out of the laboratory. Now we'll come to one real-time example. Most laboratory personnel are familiar with these situations where the error went out of the lab despite having multiple checkpoints. There are two samples of CBC had questionable values of hemoglobin, and a patient known to have a low hemoglobin value was given a normal value, and a person with normal reading was given a low value. So obviously, if you look at it, two samples have been interchanged. Two labels have been interchanged. So this is a problem which we face now and then. Good labs would bring in certain mechanisms where they would bring in systems that would minimize, I'll not say completely eliminate, it minimizes these errors. One such mechanism would be bringing in automated tube labelers where barcodes are used. Using a barcode itself is one of the measures for reducing error. Using a barcode in an automated barcode labeler machine is definitely a great advancement over manually generating these labels. So this is driven by the LIS. The data of registration of a patient is passed on to the labeler, and the labeler would print the required number of tubes when a barcode of the patient, the bill of the patient is wiped with the machine. This reduces errors to a great extent. But does it actually eliminate errors? No. Simple reason, if the registration process itself is wrong, if the patient has been given a bill belonging to another patient with the barcode registration of another patient, then automatically the wrong patient's tubes are labeled and samples get interchanged. Now, to avoid this, we brought in a second checkpoint mechanism where after the tubes are labeled, the phlebotomist would actually demonstrate, show it to the client or the customer or the patient, asking that patient to confirm whether the name on the label belongs to him or to her. Has this eliminated errors? No, it has reduced the errors. Simple logic, if you have two people, one is Ramakrishnan and the other is Ramakrishnan. Spelling is the same. One after the other they may come, and Ramakrishnan sample may be drawn for Ramakrishnan and Ramakrishnan sample for Ramakrishnan. So we are reducing errors but not eliminating them. So we need to be aware of these things. The next common area where errors can happen in phlebotomy is the order of draw. Normally, it is recommended that the different tubes need to be collected. When you use vacutainer system, different tubes have to be collected in a particular order. Like, first of all, you need to collect the citrate sample, then the gel tube, then the plain clot active tube, and then the EDTA tube. Now, most of the phlebotomy areas have charts. The technician does it by memory, but the new technician, new phlebotomist, not trained properly, or when they're too busy or when they are under stress, they may actually collect samples in the wrong order. Now, to avoid that, we have built it into the LIS that once the barcodes are labeled and drawn, based on the color of the tube, based on the logic we have put, it prints out the order of draw on the tube. This helps the phlebotomist to, without much of thought, to collect the samples in that order. Does it eliminate error? No, it reduces the error definitely. Now, the other common and more dangerous thing we've faced is a post-examination transcription error. Simple test like blood group. What was A positive was entered as O positive, signed out, report was released. So one can imagine potential risk even to the life of a patient who has been given a wrong blood group. These errors happen mainly when the blood group is done manually, the results are entered manually, and so we need to bring in checkpoints to ensure that whenever there is a manual entry, these reports have to be cross-checked multiple times by multiple people, documented that cross-checking has been done, and only then the result released. Now, we brought in a mechanism for all these manual entries that the tube itself, the tube what we have here, this picture is captured using a simple camera and it gets integrated into the LIS so that the pathologist, when they are signing out a report of a B positive blood group, they can see the entire, visualize the entire test on their screen. Does it eliminate? No, it reduces because a pathologist also can be stressed, pathologists can be fatigued, brain under pressure, and they may just sign off a B positive blood group without actually going and looking at the image. Whether this was the right one or the wrong one, nobody would know at that time unless a complaint comes from the patient. So the next level would be to automate the entire process where now we have good equipment which perform gel blood grouping on gel cards. Entire process is automated. Gel cards are actually photographed in the machine itself, and the results are interpreted by artificial intelligence pattern recognition, and these results get interfaced into the LIS. So this to a large extent brings errors into almost zero, but then if the barcode label itself, the sample itself is wrong, you cannot eliminate an error. So that way, most of our manual testing and other testings are captured, the data is captured by way of photographic images and stored against the patient's registration ID. So that is all what a laboratory, as we as a lab have done to achieve level 1. Predictability, where we predict the possible errors that can happen and then bring in mechanisms to prevent these errors from happening. Now, the next level would be to establish and meet standards of value, use benchmarking to establish criteria for value. So we are talking about value now. How are we adding value to the patient or the patient's results? So we move from a volume mentality to a value mentality, and the metrics, what measurements we do, are heavily focused towards satisfaction surveys and data generation. So we are shifting to a business mindset, understanding the customer's requirements, meeting them, and also exceeding those requirements or expectations. So the IT focus is also looking at integrating data real time to deliver greater volume outcomes. So we'll talk about turnaround time here. Turnaround time is something which we are hearing more and more often. The demand for results to be quickly released, even many a times before the sample reaches the laboratory, is very, very high on the laboratory. The pressure is very high. We have two kinds of turnaround time. Many labs perceive their turnaround time to start when the sample reaches the lab. But from the customer point of view, the turnaround time actually starts ticking from the time the sample is given, either to the clinician or to the hospital or to the laboratory. So the customer or the patient turnaround time starts from that. So there are two parts here. One is the laboratory time, which starts from the time the sample reaches the lab. The other is the time taken for the sample to be delivered to the laboratory. Now, if the customer or your physician or the hospital takes the responsibility of delivering the sample to the lab, then the lab will focus only on the laboratory TAT. But if it is the job of the laboratory to pick up samples from the customer's place, then for the entire process, it becomes the laboratory's responsibility to ensure that the turnaround time is maintained. So we brought in a mechanism where we have our IT and our data analytics department, which is working, now we've kind of real time, we monitor the turnaround time. And it turns out a different number of statistics, like one is the overall 1 month outliers. It also gives us outliers in a given day, gives us outliers based on individual departments. And we go micro level and tells us which of the 3 major tests in biochemistry department have been the outliers, maximum outliers, and go further to analyze among the thyroid function tests, how many of those results on that particular day were due to pre-analytical delay, whether it was due to analytical, and so on and so forth. So this helps us narrow down and identify the roadblock or the loophole or the bottleneck and try to clear that bottleneck to ensure a smooth process. Even our pathologists, when they start verifying the reports that are exceeding or becoming very close to the the expected delivery time and date, turnaround time, change their color. The ones which are within an hour of delivery turn yellow. The others which have exceeded the turnaround time turn red. So the pathologist focuses on clearing those reports first. Now, if you look at the lab which is responsible for picking up samples, we have most of our samples picked up by our courier boys, the logistics team, who visit laboratories, one lab after the other, and then they go about half an hour or 1 hour, and then come to one of our satellite labs, then deliver the samples there. Under normal circumstances, all the samples are opened at that time, the request forms are taken, registration process done. So that would take a lot of time. So to save on the time and ensure that activities are actually happening back end before the courier boy actually reaches the center, we devised a mechanism where the courier boy, through his smartphone, opens an app and captures pictures of the test request form, and immediately it is viewed by the central lab or one of the branch laboratories. The registration process starts there. Our lab IDs have been assigned, and before the logistics boy reaches the lab, the registration data would have been completed. And all the boy needs to do is open his login screen. He will have the entire list. Then one by one, he starts printing the barcodes, sticks them onto the tubes, and hands them over to the staff at the branch and gets back to his rounds. So much of time would be saved in all these processes. So we try our best to reduce the expected turnaround time and provide that extra value to the customer. We now come to the third level of performance, where until now, the level 1 and 2, the laboratory was looking at within its own establishment, looking at its own processes. But when it comes to level 3 performance, the focus of the lab moves from its own processes to the customer processes, how it can deliver value to the customer which exceeds the customer's expectations. So there is a shift from internal to external. It requires that the lab should become proactive and drive improvements in the informatics to create more value from laboratory data and more value from consulting services. The lab should also support IT projects that integrate essential lab patient information into algorithms, and the lab moves from being a service provider to a partner in healthcare. This is the level 3. And once this is done, the laboratory starts getting recognized outside the institution. The laboratory people start getting invited for talks, lectures, citations, and publications, and so on. Those are evidences that the lab has reached the level 3 of the laboratory value pyramid. So I'll give you one example where we have informatics which create more value to the laboratory data, which can create more value to the customers, to the patients at large. We've been including serum protein electrophoresis into liver function test as a routine since almost a decade. And once you analyze these findings, the results, it's quite revealing. There is a revelation here. Among all the people who have undergone a liver function test through an extended liver function test package, which includes serum protein electrophoresis, we analyzed recently that at least 2 to 4% of all these individuals have shown up either an M spike, which could be a myeloma, or a MGUS. Now, many of these patients would have been missed if electrophoresis had not been done at that time. In fact, this data, when we shared it with a few of the hemato-oncologists, they were really excited, saying that this is wonderful data because quite significant, and this information gives them a lot of inputs to manage, investigate patients further, catch them very early in the process, and ensure that they have a longer disease-free interval. So that is how a lab can use its data to enhance the healthcare delivery by the physician. We also did a few things like introduction of cystatin C testing as a routine with every creatinine, just to increase awareness among the clinical staff that cystatin C is a more accurate and a more sensitive predictor of early renal disease when creatinine itself may not have increased. Again, CCP, anti-CCP, along with rheumatoid factor, ionic calcium with total calcium. So these are things we tried to introduce. Then the other was, Dr. Mohan would be interested here, is introduction of diabetic retinopathy screening as a routine into diabetic screening packages, which we offer in the lab. This is a non-contact and non-dilatational screening of the eye. And these results, these images are beamed to a dedicated eye hospital, partner eye hospital, who we have the ophthalmologist or the optometrist who they see the results, they screen and then generate report and send it back within a few hours. So we did pick up a lot of early diabetic retinopathy changes in patients who apparently did not show any or did not complain of any visual disturbances. So this was when we had analyzed data from about 2017, till date, we had checked around 5,100 diabetics, and surprisingly, 12.6% showed signs of retinopathy. Of course, we have to accept here that many of these might have been people who have already come earlier for a checkup and come repeatedly over the years, but still the numbers are very high. So the lab can play a role in helping the community at large and even the physicians to pick up early retinal changes in diabetics and bring in necessary preventive measures. We introduced physician checkup as part of an executive health panel. We have our in-house physician who exclusively focuses on analyzing the patient's reports when they come for an EHP checkup and tell them or help them understand whether the reports are abnormal or normal and what needs to be done next by way of investigations. We do not tread on managing the patient because that is the domain of the referring physician or the patient's personal physicians. And whenever additional recommendations are made, it is always done in consultation with the physician. Now we have one example here, lady age 50 who came for a routine health checkup. We found, or our physician found, that the free ionized calcium is high and the adjusted calcium is high and phosphorus is on the lower side. The impression which our clinician looking at all the investigations of this patient was there is osteoporosis, hypercalcemia, suspected primary hyperparathyroidism, and he advised a few more tests in consultation with the physician. And these tests showed that the parathormone was very high And this patient later on went for imaging studies and detected to have a right inferior parathyroid adenoma, and that was removed. Patient's health condition improved. So this is where introducing mechanisms where the laboratory can contribute or exceed values of the customer, expectations of the customer, goes a long way in improving the recognition of the laboratory. Then we have another set of processes that we have where IT projects integrate essential lab patient information into algorithms. So I'll go quickly from here.
Dr. Jaira,
Yes.
sorry for disturbing. How much time are we going to
Just
take more?
5 minutes, I wind up.
Okay. Because Dr. B Mohan had a hard stop later on, so I was worried a bit.
Yeah, I wind up in 5 minutes.
Sorry to disturb.
So this CBC project, what we have, we thought we could identify based on patterns using our data science department, patterns of CBC which could indicate abnormality. A lot of thoughts came in for thalassemia and other things, but we thought we would focus our initial work on looking at the RBC indices and see whether we can differentiate iron deficiency from thalassemia based on indices and bring in some kind of an artificial intelligence within our system to recommend either iron profile or a hemoglobin electrophoresis, because doing both would be expensive for the patient. So we took up these parameters and we started identifying patterns which could help us categorize the CBC into classic iron deficiency, possible iron deficiency, classic beta thalassemia trait, and possible beta thalassemia trait, and so on. And with this, we put it through a series of processes, and finally we are at this stage where the entire algorithm is under the final validation stage, and we can bring it in real time where the recommendation gets hard-coded onto the report only to be customarily validated by the pathologist when they are signing out the report. So currently, this is how the recommendation pops up on our LIS, and once this is fully validated, it gets printed out in the report. Then the other areas where our data science department is working on, which could help or provide value to the physician, is the critical alert reporting, where automatically on the LIS, all critical values get populated and popped up. And once the critical results are validated, we plan on sending SMSs to the client without necessarily having the intervention of the pathologist or being followed up by the pathologist. Predicting liver disease using sequential liver function tests, predicting urologic diseases using urinalysis report, metabolic syndrome risk scoring. This we've done a little work. We need to gather more data on this. Sample TAT prediction. Now, based on a real-time situation of the equipment functioning well, kit availability, and so on and so forth, the source of sample, whether it is collected in Bangalore or in Mysore, we want to bring in an algorithm where on real-time basis, once at the time of registration, the front office person should be able to predict the turnaround time and communicate this to the client. So this is what we are trying to build in for the future. And many more projects are likely to come. So level 4 is how we need to establish level 3 and then do benchmarking to improve the performance. So now I'll just talk about an interesting concept of moving from laboratory 1 concept to a laboratory 2.0. Laboratory 1.0 is traditionally what we have been doing, where the physician triggers the request, the laboratory performs the test, the client pays for the tests which have been generated, and the results are issued. The physician takes the decision on what needs to be done next, whether treatment or additional investigations. Now, the laboratory 2.0 moves to a bigger role, where the concept would be that the physician either hands over the patient or hands over the patient sample to the laboratory with a set of clinical information. And it is for the laboratory to decide what is to be done next, what investigations need to be carried out to finally give a complete diagnosis to the physician. And the billing model would happen for the entire package of care cost or the diagnostic, the information which the laboratory would provide. So that is how the laboratories are moving from lab 1.0 concept to the lab 2.0 concept, and that would add immense value to the treating physician. So with this, I thank you all for a patient hearing, and I also sincerely thank a few of my staff, the Ms. Suma and Mr. Dattamurthy from Data Science Department, who have been relentlessly working on their computers, gathering data and providing us with these information. And we have an asset with us, Dr. Ajit, who is our in-house physician, and he interacts with patients extensively, and he's been supporting us in these value-add services. So I conclude here by saying that exceeding expectations is where satisfaction ends and loyalty begins. So thank you all. Thank you very much.
Mukh sir and Shilsagar madam, and we would like to felicitate you, sir. Unfortunately, not in person, but we would have loved to have you here in person with us.
Yeah, that's reciprocal. I would have loved to be there.
Sir, hope you can see what we are trying to show on screen.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And bouquet.
Thank you.
Sir, it's what we call here as a uparna. Is used for felicitating the guest of honor. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And because we are little late on our schedule and Dr. V Mohan was in a hurry, we have decided to have our lamp lighting and everything a little later post the oration. So I think most of you, there are quite a few people here in the audience as well, in addition to the online what you can see. And I think most of the delegates who are attending today's CME have known Dr. Golwilker or have even interacted with Dr. Golwilker in person. So Dr. Ajit Golwilker, an alumni and MD pathologist from BJ Medical College, Pune, our very own Pune's prestigious college, started his journey with a dream of providing world-class pathology services in a small 450 square feet laboratory on Curve Road. He started as a one-man show and did his collection to processing and reporting and consulting everything on his own to begin with. He nurtured that sapling, and now it has grown to what we see today's AG Diagnostics with the main lab in spacious 16,000 square feet premises on Bhandarkar Road. It's the state-of-art lab and has over 50 collection centers in Pune and Pimpri-Chinchwad area. He pioneered and introduced a unique concept of services at the doorstep through the home collection service facility, which also in the initial days he did himself. And now he has a skilled expert team of phlebotomists to do the same. His endeavor has been to deliver results in the shortest possible time, maintaining highest quality of highest standard of and accuracy and reliability, and yet at affordable cost. There are many firsts to his credit. He introduced automation, diverse test facilities, including flow cytometry, immunohistochemistry, molecular diagnostic techniques, that is PCR, laboratory information system, and over and above all, ours was the first laboratory in the city of Pune. His was the first laboratory to get NABL or ISO accreditation way back in 2003, amidst the very first few even in the country. He's one of the most important asset which he earned over his 4 decades of dedicated service to the society is his loyal staff members and customers' trust and love. He instantly formed a special bond with all his patients and customers, and helping and touching several lives, and I would say generations, at least 3 to 4 generations in each family. For me and my sister too, he was not just a father, but our mentor, our guru. We fondly said that pathology runs in our blood. I'm sure such a simple and down-to-earth person will be remembered dearly by all his family members, staff, customers, colleagues, one and all. Dr. Golwilker Memorial Oration is a perfect tribute to him, an academician at heart. And especially today, 27th February being his birthday, he was born on 27th of February, 1951. To deliver this year's oration, we have India's renowned diabetologist, Dr. B Mohan from Chennai. He would be joining us online. Dr. V. Mohan surely needs no introduction, but nonetheless, I would do a quick formal introduction. He has several degrees to his credit over and above being an MD medicine person, like FRCP, PhD, Doctorate of Science, and just these are few of those. He is the chairman and chief of diabetology at Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center in Chennai, which is an IDFC Center of Excellence in Diabetes Care. Dr. Mohan oversees a chain of 50 diabetes centers across 8 states in India and has over 540,000 registered diabetes patients under his care. He's president and director of Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, Asia's largest standalone research center. His main research interests are epidemiology of diabetes and its complications, genomics of diabetes, including monogenic diabetes and type 1 diabetes, fibrocalculus pancreatic diabetes, and precision diabetes. He has 1,460 research papers to his credit, including 938 original articles, 178 research papers and textbook chapters in textbooks of diabetes, attracting over 165,000 citations. Dr. Mohan is ranked amongst the top 2 scientists in the world and amongst the top 0.1% researchers in type 2 diabetes. Dr. Mohan has received over 200 awards, including the prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy National Award by Medical Council of India, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Centenary Award, highest biomedical research award given by ICMR. And in 2012, Dr. Mohan has been awarded Padma Shri by the Government of India. Dr. Mohan's autobiography, Making Excellence a Habit, The Secret to Building a World-Class Healthcare System in India, is a bestseller, and he will throw some light on the same during today's oration. It is indeed an honor, sir, to have you here, and thank you for accepting our invitation and on a short notice, come and deliver this oration. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Avanti, for that generous introduction. I must thank you and your sister, other family members, for inviting me to deliver the first Dr. Ajit Golwilker endowment oration. And I'm very privileged to do so today. Like Dr. Jayaraman said, I would have also loved to be there in person, and I'm sure this is only the start of a long collaboration. And I hope some things which I say today will also help to strengthen that oration. So in the interest of time, let me share my screen. Are you able to see the screen now? You're able to see the screen? Excuse me, are you able to see the screen? I presume you are.
Yes,
so,
yes, sir, we are.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So
let me, formally pay my respects and pranams to Dr. Ajit Golwilker. I've not had the pleasure of meeting him, but of course I've heard about him and about AG Diagnostics. And when Avanti and others were telling me that one of his wishes was to start.
Sir,
and yes, sir.
Yes. Dr. Mohan?
Yes.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Dr. Mohan, we are unable to hear you. Just give us a minute.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Mohan?
Yes.
Yes, can you just say something? We just want to.
Yeah. I'm just I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
Can't hear.
Oh no. I can hear you. I could hear Dr. Jayaraman, and I did the test as well. Let me see whether it's.
Dr. Mohan, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm here online and I can hear you. There's some
I
problem
can hear
in
you,
the-
Dr. Mohan. I'm
I
Jairam.
think there is a problem at that end because
When
even when
you-
Dr. Jayaraman is speaking, they could not hear.
Yes,
But I
sir.
think
Yes, sir.
everyone else can hear. So I think.
We can hear you, sir.
Yeah,
Great.
now you can hear.
We can hear you.
So I just wanted to pay my respects to Dr. Ajit Golwilker, and the family told me that it had been his dream to start an oration, and he wanted me to deliver the oration. I was very humbled, and that's the reason why I immediately agreed. And to deliver it on his birthday, I think is a very sentimental occasion. I'm sure from wherever he is, he must be showering his blessings on AG Diagnostics, on the family, and on all of us. So my pranams to him. I've had only a short interaction with Dr. Avanti, and I've not yet met Dr. Vivanti or talked to her, but I can already see the enthusiasm with which they are running this organization. And therefore, I look forward to a close collaboration with them, and also wish to thank IMA and the organizing committee of this meeting for inviting me. So as Avanti said, the topic I've been allotted is making excellence in habits. It's very interesting because ever since this book has been published, in many scientific forum where when I'm invited, I expect them to ask me to talk on diabetes, and they'll say, no, you talk on making excellence a habit. So that book has really made a mark. But before I go further, I would like to pay my respects to my mentor and father, Professor M. Vishwanathan, because he was the first official diabetologist of India, because he started the first diabetic clinic in India at the Stanley Medical College in the 1948, actually. And he actually established diabetology as a specialty. In the second part of my life, it was my classmate and who later became my wife, Dr. Rema Mohan, who played a very important role. Unfortunately, we lost her quite early due to cancer, but she was a driving force in the second half of my life when we started off on our own, Rema and I. And then now I have a third generation of diabetologists, which I think, as Avanti was saying, that pathology runs in the family. Diabetology certainly seems to run in my family, because both my daughter, who's my only child, and my son-in-law are not only diabetologists, but very actively involved in the research as well as the clinical work that we do at our center. And that's my extended team at our center. I won't name all of them in the interest of time, but they all contribute to the success of whatever we have achieved. Now, getting back to this book, I'm going to use this book as the kind of the fulcrum or the backbone for my talk. So starting with excellence, what is excellence? You heard a lot about excellence and the practical aspects of maintaining excellence from Dr. Jayaraman. But excellence in general is a quality of being outstanding or extremely good. I think Dr. Jayaraman mentioned, gone are the days of patient satisfaction or customer satisfaction. We have to go far beyond that. Satisfaction is not at all what people want. People really want excellence. And what is a habit? A habit is a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. A good habit or a bad habit is very difficult to give up. Now, believe me, when I chose the title of this book, I thought it was original because, Penguin is pretty strict in everything that they do, including the title and in everything. So I had to think of about 100 names: climbing the ladder of excellence, excellence this, excellence that. I wanted the word excellence there. And finally, after rejecting about 50 of my proposals, when I said making excellence a habit, they liked it. And that's how I chose it. So I was very humbled when at the inaugural function of the book, somebody quoted Aristotle and said that in 322 BC and 384 BC, Aristotle had said that whatever we do we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So it looks as if I plagiarized Aristotle, but I was not at all aware. I was just making different combinations of excellence. And that's how I chose excellence, a habit. It just tells you that nothing is new in life. Some brilliant person has already thought about it earlier. And Aristotle, 2000 years ago, has already enunciated that. Now, let me try to share some of the aspects of excellence in my book, and I simply don't have time to go through it. So I'm just listing some of the chapters in my book. I talk about serendipity, making use of opportunities. Now, you invite me for an oration, I come and speak here, and there it can end. Or it can be the start of a long collaboration. Now, I met Dr. Jayaraman virtually now, of course, I met him earlier also. And I was just thinking when he was talking about collaborations with clinicians and data science, how much valuable data he will be having at the Newberg Anand diagnostic labs, which can probably lead to collaboration in my field, something which he may not have thought about, but instantly, and that's serendipity. Then you have to focus. And I decided to take up medicine only to do diabetes because my father needed help. And that's all explained in my autobiography. So my focus was on one disease even before I joined medical college. And from that time, it has not changed over the last 50 years. You have to be resilient because a lot of times you'll fall down, but every time you fall down, you should get up. Passion is what drives success. If you're not passionate about something, you're not going to succeed. And of course, you have to have grit. When everybody tells you you'll fail, you must believe in yourself. Dare to dream big. It was mentioned by Avanti how Dr. Golwilker started off all by himself, but then he dreamed big. He thought of going to houses and then taking it, today what we call as home care and so on. He had already established long ago because he dared to dream about it, going into the thing. And just now we heard from Dr. Jayaraman, lab 1.0 to 2.0. You're dreaming something else. And then when you dream it, it happens. Also, you have to share your knowledge. There's no point in bottling it all up thinking somebody will copy you, because the more you share, the more you grow. Failure is never final. And if you don't try, if you're not failed enough, you're not tried enough. Never let people discourage you. You should read that chapter. How many times people have told me I'll never succeed, and still I persisted and I proved them wrong. Harness the power of collaboration. This is what it's all about. Collaborating with Pune and collaborating with Bangalore, collaborating with the world. And I'll show you some examples of that. Now, people tell me, what for you? You were born with not a golden spoon, but that golden spoon had diamonds in it. And that is how you were born. My father, when he came to study, he had only 2 sets of dresses to wear throughout his 5 years. And in his entire 5 years, he had 2 ice creams. That's all he could afford, and he was very, very poor because his father died and his mother was a general practitioner who hardly could look after her 4 children. And so it is a big struggle for him. When I joined him, he had been building his practice completely. He had been focusing completely on Stanley, and his devotion was more to Stanley than to his private practice. So his private practice was in shambles. In 1971-72, when I joined MBBS, I joined him. But at that time, one of the agreements I had with him, I didn't want to do medicine at all because I wanted to do research. I wanted to become a writer, basically, which explains my passion for writing. So he said, okay, take any one room and make it a lab. I said, I want to start my research now in second year. I don't want to wait till final year and so on. And then I'll never make it. So I found a dilapidated car shed like this. And that one was that we had bats in it, rats in it, all kinds of things in it. And so we took it all out, cleaned it, and then built our first lab and hired a PhD with 0 funding. When you applied to ICMR, they said you're a private institution. Today, we are an ICMR Advanced Center. But those days in 1972, they said, why should you do research? It's the government medical colleges which should do research, not you. So we had to start everything from our own funding, our own salary. We had to set up a lab and get mice and rats and start experiments as an 18-year-old. And that's me as an 18-year-old. This is with my father a few years later when he visited me in Germany when I was an Alexander von Humboldt fellow. But then I was also lucky that from 3rd year onwards, I had Professor Lalitha Kameshwaran, some of you may know her, professor of pharmacology, who also later became a PhD guide. And she became the first vice chancellor of the university, the MGR Medical University. She gave me a free hand. She said, we have an equally dilapidated animal house here in Madras Medical College. Why don't you just start that and start your dog experiment? So I started dog experiments as a third-year student. So I was virtually doing only research throughout my MBBS days. I had to just pass anatomy, physiology, and so on, by the way. But, this is my main passion. And as you can see, one of my experiments at that time was in dogs. And we used a combination of glibentamide and penformin, a biguanide and a sulfonylurea, which is routine today. But in 1970s, when we started this, nobody was combining a sulfonylurea with a biguanide. We followed this up with clinical studies with my father, and thus was born combination therapy for type 2 diabetes. You may not believe it now, but 50 years earlier, it was unheard of. In fact, some of my professors said we are doing quack medicine when we started doing this, So that's the kind of opposition we had. Then we started, the research journey continued, and till 1991, I stayed with my father from 71 to 91. But the problem is when you start too precocious, by the time you're 38 years old, you almost feel as if you're 65 years old. And so I was kind of raring to go, and he's 20 years later than his retirement. So the pace was not matching at all. But during that time, already 250 papers I had published. It was already a record in India in the first 20 years. In the first 10 years, only a student. And only the next 10 years, I worked full-time with him. So in 1991, my wife and I decided that it's time to move on. And so we moved to another part of the city. That's my father inaugurating the building. It's a small rented building, a few rooms. They could hardly afford anything. That's my grandfather, by the way, my mother's father, not his father. His father died very early, and that's why he had to struggle. And that's my daughter, Anjana, and that's my wife there. You can see very simple, two to three rooms in a small place with a lab. First patient registered. My father said, should not take even one patient from me. I wrote it down and gave it to him. I'll never call one patient of yours. If they come to me, I see them. And I kept up those ethics. Today, with the grace of God, as mentioned, we have 51 branches in 32 cities of India. We've been mostly in the south, the 5 southern states and Puducherry. Then we went to Odisha, and now we are in West Bengal. It's been a long, slow journey, and the rate of growth is slow only because we are doing research, administration, clinical practice, still seeing patients. I still see patients 6 days a week. So with that, to grow is a little difficult. And then it's a specialty. You have to get specialists who will follow the same pattern. So we have not been able to grow to the same extent as other chains, for example, other lab chains or others can grow. So we have total diabetes care, and that's what makes us special. And that's where the excellence comes in, putting everything under one roof. And that's why we, for the first time, today, every diabetes center is called specialty center. But in 1991, when we called it as Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center, that word specialty is added on because we're going to look at the eye, the kidney, because my wife is the eye doctor. And so everything else coming under one roof in a diabetic clinic. That concept was new, not only in India, but also in the world. So we became the world's ISO was mentioned, by Anand. I mean, Jairam also mentioned that, and Avanti also mentioned. So we got our ISO 9000 certification in 1998. We were the third in the country as a hospital. Justlock 2 months before us, then Shankar Netralia 4 weeks before us, and we were the third to go for ISO 9000 certification. Many others, I won't belabor the point. Awards have been rolling in from virtually every organization, whether it's Times of India or India Today or CNBC or OPPI, or you just name it, Week magazine, and not once, but 7, 8 years in a row. Once we start getting it, they continuously keep giving it. And these are all by polls, by different specialties. So the work is being recognized. Let me move on to the Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, because if you take a clinical setup, I cannot compare with big corporate chains and so on who have tons of money. We have no money because we're working in a small specialty. But what distinguishes us from other organizations is the research that we do. And that's because it started very early. In 1996, I set up a separate research foundation. This had been one of my dreams. My father said it will never work. And that's one of the reasons why I said, let me attempt it on my own. So we started in a single room. It was again a toilet converted into a research facility. We employed our first staff, just like I started 20 years ago. I had to start all over again, right from the patient. So it's like running your life all over again twice, reborn kind of a thing. So that way we started again, but I couldn't resist. First 5 years it took in building my clinical team, and then the research urge is so strong that we brought in the research staff. Today, we have our research center in 4 locations. One of them, and the largest, is in Siruseri, and I invite you all to attend that. This is in a 6.5 acre campus, 40,000 square feet of facility of basic research. There is no clinical activity at all. There are no patients at all. It's in the outskirts of Chennai, and we have different facilities, one for clinical trials, one for epidemiology, nutrition research. This is another building for clinical research. So it's now grown so much. We have collaborations with national, international universities. I'll show you some of them, recognized by WHO, IDF, ICMR, DST, DBT. 4 universities are collaborating with us to give PhD. Madras University, MGR Medical University, Deakin University, Melbourne, University of Warwick. That means the students can do their PhD in Chennai and get the PhD from Australia. They don't even have to go there at all. These are just a partial list of collaborators. I couldn't put in all our collaborators, but across the globe, almost in every continent, we collaborate on research. Let me just show you one. This is Dr. Salim Yusuf. Many of you may know he is from St. John's, and then he went on to England and then to US, where he worked with NIH. And today he heads the largest epidemiological unit at the Hamilton in Canada, in Toronto. So with him, 20 years ago, we started a small study called as PURE, Prospective Urban Rural Epidemiological Study. It started in India. We had St. John's, we had Chennai, we had Jaipur, we had Trivandrum, and we had Chandigarh. 5 centers, about 10-20,000 people we started. Today, it's grown to 25 countries in 5 continents, 250,000 people being continuously followed up for 15 years. There is no such epidemiological study anywhere in the world. And that's why Salim Yusuf's H-index is 260 or something. And he is, I think, the 2nd highest scientist among all scientists in the world, even if you include Einstein and Newton and everyone put together. He is number 2, I think, today in the world. Of course, in medicine, there's nobody to even compete with him. And this is the kind of papers we publish, New England Journal of Medicine. And then we have, this is a thing which I worked on from the PURE study, 132,000 people followed for 15 years from 21 countries. And Balaji Bavadarni, my student, PhD student, and I, we worked on this. And we showed that just taking rice itself, too much of rice itself, produces diabetes 10 or 15 years later. So these are all kind of, and we also showed that a high glycemic index, this was again in New England Journal last year, where we showed that a high glycemic index does not only associate diabetes, but also mortality. You actually die. And this is with people like David Jenkins and so on. So this is a kind of path-breaking thing, things where the textbooks get rewritten after the research. I'm not even mentioning the list of Indian collaborators. It's too long to put here, but I just want to mention that just 3 days ago, I was elected to the Governing Council and to the court, the 2 highest bodies of the Indian Institute of Science. And therefore, I look forward to a lot of collaboration with many of these centers, and I hope to include all of you also as collaborators. Today, we have close to 1,500 publications. I believe it is a world record, 985 research articles, and with a H-index of 142 and so on. And we have papers in Nature, Nature Medicine, Nature Genetics, Nature Reviews Endocrinology. New England Journal, of course, is number 1 in the world. It's above Nature and Nature Genetics. Lancet is number 2 in the world, above Nature and so on. And many other journals. I have over 2,000 research collaborators today in the world. And that's the chapter on the power of collaboration, which you should read. But I just want to tell you that everything, there's a snowballing effect in whatever I've done. You've seen I started in a small clinic, rented, then built our thing, then the first branch, then other branches, and then grew. So we didn't start with 50 branches or 50,000 square feet facility. We started with a 500 square feet facility, much like Dr. Golwilker also started in a small place, and now we have 16,000 square feet. Same thing, the same snowballing effect. Research, start in single room, then I showed you how we grew. Today we have 25 scientists working for us, 25 PhD students. Even some of the medical colleges don't have 25 PhD students. Then in education, so we started with small in-house fellowship programs. Today we have all India, pan India, and CCBDM I heard was announced just before this as part of the IMA. That is something which we started, and this is what I've mentioned here. 16,000 physicians and 12,000 diabetes educators pan India have been trained.
And research, even if you just take epidemiology itself, first we started clinical studies, then small epidemiological study in Chennai, then whole of Chennai, then whole of India, and now the whole world through the PURE study. And PURE is just one of the international studies which we are involved in. There are many, many others. So remember that excellence is like a mirage. When you think you've reached there, it would have moved. So the bar keeps going higher and higher. So there's no real excellence. It's just a mirage. It's a concept. What you think is excellence today is outdated tomorrow, and you have to keep moving. A true leader constantly keeps raising the bar. I just wanted to show you one example of how lives of people can be changed by research. It's not just saying we published 1,500 papers and we have got a H index of so much. It's not so. We are really changing lives. And because in the interest of time, I'll just show you this one thing because I think can lead to potential collaboration with AG Diagnostics and so on. This is Dr. Radha Venkatesan and her colleagues. And this is our genomics department, which is totally full-fledged. And this department alone has 100 publications and 13 PhDs it has already produced. We will focus on many aspects of diabetes, but I want to talk to you today about monogenic diabetes, and I'll end with that. So there are two types of monogenic diabetes. So monogenic, as the name implies, one single gene is causing the diabetes, unlike type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. So two major types, the maturity onset diabetes, the young or MODY, and neonatal diabetes, which is in newborn children. Now, MODY was described by Tattersall and Fines in 1975 when I was in final year, and I was fascinated when I read this in final year. So these are young people who are not insulin dependent, who are not type 1, and that is what Tattersall and Fines tried to describe. Today, by doing genetic testing, we can identify 14 different types of MODY. Each one has its own clinical characteristics. And this is truly precision medicine as its best, as I will show you. But you may ask, why bother about all this as a clinician? You're just going more and more into research. No, I bring it back into the bedside. Again, I bring it back. Let me show you one case. There's a 16-year-old girl. She was thin, presented with severe diabetes. HbA1c was quite high. And she's seen by an endocrinologist who said, well, you're young, you're thin, and you have severe diabetes. It's type 1 diabetes. He started her on 3 times insulin per day. The parents were crying. The child was crying, saying her life is over, this, that, just take 4 times insulin, 3 times insulin per day. She came for a second opinion. Of course, many people come for second opinion. Many of them turn out to be type 1 diabetes. Then that is where the value addition, which Dr. Jayaraman mentioned, comes. But in this particular case, the first thing I did was not a genetic study. I took a paper and pencil and drew her family history. This is the girl who came, and that's her mother, and that's on her mother's side. So I found that the father didn't have, nobody on the father's side had these who read here, those who married into the family. But here on her mother's sister, another sister, all had diabetes. And then their parents also seem to have had. This is classical autosomal dominant inheritance, which Tattersall and Fines described. So I said, okay, let's go further. So we did C-peptide assay, which showed very good beta cell reserve. It is not like type 1. Then we did the GAR antibodies, zinc transporter, both were negative. So we said, this doesn't look like type 1. Let's do MODY genetic testing, which we did. And what we found was she had HNF1 alpha mutation. Now, this is MODY 3, the commonest type of MODY. And those who have this type of MODY will respond to tablets, and you can stop insulin. And then we tested the rest of the family. By the time her sister developed diabetes, her mother had diabetes, and all those who had diabetes, you see the star, it means they had the same mutation. So now we have gone to the whole family, and we are showing that all of them have MODY type diabetes, and all of them are taking insulin, can stop it and change it to tablets. So we stopped her insulin, gave her the cheapest sulfonylurea, glibenclamide, cost few paisa. Her blood sugars came down, and after 10 to 15 years, her sister and she are still responding to sulfonylurea. So this is a classical example of precision diabetes and translational diabetes and how research can help the patient. Let me now talk about neonatal diabetes, then I'll stop. If you thought the first story was fascinating, and we have hundreds of such children with the MODY, neonatal diabetes is simply fascinating. This is a newborn baby, okay? Few days of birth, 2, 3 months, 6 months, before 6 months of life. And there are two types. The first type will go away before the first birthday. That's less common. More common one is permanent neonatal diabetes. So when a child gets it, immediately they start on insulin and told that you have to take insulin throughout life. Let me show you another case. 72-day-old female child, 72 days old. Okay, so less than 3 months old. Child had diabetes for 15 days, very high sugars, started on insulin injections. She was taking 14 units, which is quite high, for a child of who's this big, and since it is not getting under control, the physician there referred to us. Now, when a child has less than 6 months of age and the diagnosis made before the first 6 months of age, you have to do genetic testing. That's one of the mandates. So we said, okay, straight away we'll send her for genetic testing. So we did the sequencing and we found that she had a mutation. And if you have this particular mutation in the KCNJ11 or in the ABCC8, they will respond to sulfonylurea. So what we did was we confirmed this and then started the child on glibenclamide. And you can see what happened. This is the dose of the glibenclamide, slowly increased over 6 days. And you can see the insulin dose coming down and becoming 0. And the blood sugars are not coming under control, getting under control. So it's not after insulin that's coming down. After stopping the insulin, changing the sugars came down after treatment with the sulfonylurea. And this could only been done because we did the genetic testing. This, of course, makes big news, but still not enough because we still have only a few hundred cases. And we're trying to collaborate with different people in different parts of the country to pick up these children with either MODY or neonatal diabetes. Today, we have neonatal diabetes alone, 500 cases. About 300 have neonatal diabetes, 58 have other genetic syndromes. That means the prognosis is very different. 164 had the opposite of neonatal diabetes. They had low sugars or hypoglycemia, which is another killer. Again, you have a genetic defect and you can treat them with diazoxide and so on if you identify them. So when to order monogenic diabetes testing? All children below 6 months of age. It's mandatory. You have to do it. Okay, otherwise you'll keep on treating them with insulin. If you suspect type 1 diabetes, but C-peptide is present, GAD is negative, zinc transporter is negative. So you can now start looking out. Who are these who are coming to your clinic where the child is, say, below 20 years of age, 15 years, 10 years, but C-peptide seems to be preserved and GAD is negative and zinc transporter is negative. Please send them to us. And we'd be happy to see whether they have MODY or any of the other forms of monogenic diabetes. Type 2 diabetes suspected, but there's no obesity, no acanthus nigricans, no insulin resistance. Again, it could be MODY, and the treatment is different. Today, being an ICMR lab and a nodal center, we're getting samples from all over the country. We have set up what is called as the Monogenic Diabetes Registry of India. If you say www.monogenicdiabetes.in, you will see, and it tells you how to send the blood, how to get the consent form, what is MODY, all that is explained in that. So my take-home message is to you, ladies and gentlemen, would be practice excellence in everything you do. Small or big, doesn't matter. We didn't start excellence after reaching this. We started excellence when we started in a 2-room clinic. Slowly, excellence will become a habit. Jagdish Chandra Bose said that when one dedicates himself or herself wholly for a great cause, the closed doors shall open. He didn't say it may open, shall open, and the seemingly impossible will become possible for me. When I started with my father, I started in something like a car shed. And from there, 20 years later, made that into a world-class institution. I started again in a car shed kind of a place, 20 years later, and did it all over again. Today, if you tell me, will you do it all over again? Possibly, yes. If I had to start all over again, I'd probably still do it, except that the learning curve will be much shorter now that we have years of experience. So if you focus on something, you have a passion, anything is possible. And in India, I think we should be proud that we have set up the centers of excellence virtually from scratch. And I hope this talk has been of some inspiration to all of you. Jai Hind. Thank you. Do we have any time for questions or comments or something? No. We can't hear you. Unfortunately, some mic problem there. I'm not able to hear.
I think can we just click a picture with Dr. Golwilker's photo also?
Yes.
We can just move on that side, sir. One minute.
It goes on that side.
Sir, hope we are doing everything on time and you can reach your other commitment as well.
Thank you. Now we can hear you. I couldn't hear you in between, but now I can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. God
Thank you
bless.
so much for full of excellence and full of means intelligence and what not to say, I was very much impressed by your lecture, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now we'll take 2-3 minutes for stage arrangement. And we'll have inauguration of the ceremony today. अरे विनंती मी सर्वांना विनंती करते की त्यांनी डॉक्टर गोळविलकर सरांच्या प्रतिमेस पुष्पहार अर्पण करून आदरांजली अर्पण करावी. I request Dr. Manisha and our Deputy Secretary, Dr. Gitanjali, also to be on the dais. I request all the dignitaries on the dais to join for lamp lighting. Yes. Now I request Dr. Jayan Navrange sir to give an overview of this oration.
Thank you, madam. काही मराठीतनं बोलतो, काही इंग्लिशमधनं बोलतो. डॉक्टर अजित गोळविलकर आणि माझे संबंध कॉलेज डेज पासून. He was 3 years younger to me, 3 years junior in the medical college. आणि खरी माझी ओळख त्यांनी लॅबोरेटरी सुरू करायच्या सुमारास झाली. What I found in him is an extremely sincere, dedicated, most reasonable, logical pathologist having big aims. म्हणजे त्यावेळी पॅथॉलॉजिस्ट होतेच. म्हणजे मला आठवते डॉक्टर भेंडे होते, व्हेरी वेल नोन पॅथॉलॉजिस्ट, आणि खूप चांगली मुलं त्यावेळी पॅथॉलॉजी जायला लागली डॉक्टर भेंडेकडे बघून. मग त्यांचे सेकंड जनरेशन आले, डॉक्टर भिंगारे आले, डॉक्टर केळकर आले, आणि त्यांच्याकडे बघून पुढे गेलेले म्हणजे डॉक्टर गोलविलकर. परंतु एक स्टेप पुढे, म्हणजे दरवेळेस कायम त्याची मान माझ्या मते तो बघायचा सरळ, पण एमच्या बाबतीत ऑलवेज अ लिटल इन्क्लाइंड, की आपल्याला पुढच्या टप्प्यात जायचंय, ऍक्युरसी. आणि ज्यावेळी काही एरर आहे असं वाटेल, आपण फोन करून पुन्हा एकदा सॅम्पल पाठवू. ऍब्सोल्युटली सिन्सिअर, ऍब्सोल्युटली डेडिकेटेड, परफेक्शनिस्ट, अँड ही वॉन्टेड टू गो फॉर ऑटोमेशन. आणि मला असं वाटतं की पुण्यातल्या लॅबोरेटरीजमध्ये इतक्या प्रमाणात ऑटोमेशन आणलेलं, आणि एक आणखीन 3-4 वर्षात डेव्हलप झालं आफ्टर स्टार्टेड द प्रॅक्टिस. बाय द वे, इन्सिडेंटली त्यांचं जे कर्वेरची जागा होती, तिथेच मी माझं क्लिनिक बुक केलं होतं, माझ्या काकांनी ते बांधलेलं होतं. पण दॅट वॉज लॉंग अगो. प्रसाद चेंबर्स, गणेश चेंबर्स, आणि तिथे लिलीने पण घेतलं. आणि अर्थात तिथे मी कधीच गेलो नाही, बुकिंग पण माझं झालं नव्हतं, पण तिथे जी जागा बघून आलो होतो. आणि पहिल्यापासून असं लक्षात आलं की ही वॉन्टेड टू एम हायर ऑन अ ब्रॉड फुटिंग, ब्रॉड स्केल. आणि वन थिंग आय फाउंड इन हिम आफ्टर स्टार्टिंग माय हॉस्पिटल ऑन व्हॉट एव्हर रेअर टेस्ट, देर इज नथिंग विच कुड नॉट बी डन बाय अजित गोलविलकर. मग आपल्याकडे टेस्ट होत नसतं, दुसरीकडनं करून आणेल, पण क्वालिटी कंट्रोल यूज टू बी हिज. आणि त्यानंतर मला आठवते त्याप्रमाणे वेल्लोर पॅथॉलॉजी लॅबमधनं सॅम्पल्स यायची, आणि त्याच्या अगेन्स्ट तुम्ही टेस्ट करून बघितलं की कळायचं क्वालिटी कंट्रोल दोज डेज. So he was the first one to start in Pune, as far as I understand, I know about it. With this, he went ahead, then ultimately had joined hands with Metropolis, then separated out, started his own company under the name AJ Diagnostics, and what Vinanti and Avanti are looking after. I'm very proud of them. की तोच वसा त्यांनी पुढे चालू ठेवलेला आहे. अकाली निधन झालं. Unfortunately, I was also there involved in conducting the condolence meeting, and I could see how popular he was. म्हणजे कित्येक मधल्या स्टेप्स आणि डेव्हलपमेंट्स मी गायलेले आहेत बिकॉज ऑफ शॉर्टेज ऑफ टाइम. परंतु पुढे जेव्हा आपण IMA बरोबर हे काम सुरू करतोय, दिस इज द फर्स्ट ओरेशन. मॅडम, याच्यात फर्स्ट मध्ये खूप गोष्टी इन्क्लुडेड आहेत. मला वाटतं असं पहिलं ओरेशन आहे की ज्याच्यामध्ये त्या माणसाचा वाढदिवस आजच आहे. सो दिस इज अ कोइन्सिडन्स. नंबर 2, दिस इज द फर्स्ट हायब्रिड कॉन्फरन्स वी आर होल्डिंग आफ्टर रिअली लॉंग टाइम. In the sense COVID had come, then we started in between. Again, second wave in the last April was terrible. So we just discontinued. And this is for the first time after such a long time. गेल्या एप्रिल नंतर आत्ताच आपण, किंवा गेल्या मार्च नंतर आज आपण पहिल्यांदी, आणि म्हणून येणारे लोक सुद्धा जरा घाबरत आहे का, नक्की आहे ना. Naturally, when we say hybrid, whether it is really allowed. And thirdly, the natural restrictions, at least till 1st of March, they will be there at 50% of the occupancy. त्यामुळे येताना भरभरून आम्हाला खात्री आहे पुढच्या वेळी देर विल बी 400-500 क्राऊड. पण इवन नाउ आय थिंक द लिसनिंग पीपल राईट नाउ इज 164, and when the academic talks start again, it will again go to 200. So with this modest beginning, I mean, it was a request from Avanti and Vinanti that we will hold the first oration right today. This has been planned in last just 15 days, and such a wonderful program, and Dr. B Mohan and Jayaraman as your participants, and Dr. Prachi is also here. So we have an excellent academic feast, which was his always.
You, sir, also.
I am a part of both. So I am within Golwilker's family. I am also within IMA family, very much embedded in it. And we have our next team of trustees in the form of Dr. Sanjay Patil, who is very enthusiastic. he has more, I would say, outgrown my shoes when I was executive trustee 1 year back. And Dr. Padma Iyer is also there, and past trustee Dr. Behre is there. Dr. Behre was also very close to Dr. Ajit Golwilker. Dr. Halbe is here, Mohan Joshi. Dr. Marathi is also there. He's also a trustee here. So I'm sure this oration is going to go much beyond today's program and much beyond the conventional programs. And this is a perpetual, going to be a perpetual feature, that we have such 6 orations by now. And they have been all very successful. And this will be the one, another one, which will be beyond multicon. Yeah, because we have this other orations only in the multicon. But we said that it should be somewhere away from multicon, because it should not be that all orations are getting crowded in one conference and then they lose the importance. So this is, I think we'll be holding it every year, somewhere close to his birthday, next to or before 27th of February, whichever is close Sunday, because Sundays are the most convenient for the doctors with the highest attendance. With this, I wish this oration, the first oration, a grand success. Of course, you have heard what Dr. Mohan said, and right from the humble beginning to the par excellence world standard, the same oration will also go the same way. That is my wish and my best wishes for the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our President-elect, Dr. Meenakshi Deshpande, to say a few words. And she'll be showing a film on Dr. Ajit Golwilker, sir.
I'm extremely sorry. The main person who is instrumental in having this collaboration is Dr. Meenakshi Deshpande. So we should really appreciate her efforts and congratulations.
Thank you, sir. And आज मराठी भाषा दिन असल्यामुळे या सभागृहातील उपस्थित असलेल्या सर्वांना व दृकश्राव्य माध्यमातून जे उपस्थित आहेत त्या सर्वांना माझा नमस्कार. I am really overwhelmed and extremely happy regarding initiating and initiation of such a grand IMA Pune Dr. Ajit Golwilker oration. We had many stints together with Dr. Ajit Golwilker sir, and the most important was in 2005 or 2006 when a close family friend of both of us was suffering a lot, and it was not diagnosed anywhere in any other labs outside. And when it came to Golwilker lab, we found out that the cause of the suffering was porphyria. And then the connection continued. And we had a really very enthusiastic time with Dr. Ajit Golwilker sir about treating this patient, because it was a close family friend, a common family friend, and he became very much better after that. And so Dr. Ajit Golwilker sir will remain in our memories for a lifetime. And we will never forget him, in spite of the fact that our connection with Dr. Golwilker lab later on was not there. But now again, we are rejuvenating this with my initiative and Dr. Anand's initiative of talking with Dr. Vinanti and considering this as an IMA Pune oration. So I thank all the office bearers. I thank Dr. Navrange sir. I thank Dr. Sanjay Patil. I thank all the office bearers of even IMA and AG Diagnostics for taking forward this oration and formulating it into a physical oration and a hybrid oration this time. Thank you, sir. And I'll just like to show a short video film, which was edited by me, and it was there actually, but that time he had given it to us, and then I had edited it afterwards. So if you can show the film just now. And I'll just pay my put some flowers in front of his photo because Magashi thoda miss. आता बघा कमी करा.
शेअर करू.
their problem so that I can give them the best solution. In the sense, I can give them the best diagnostic. Diagnosis. And once I develop that confidence in my patient, I have always seen that my patients have always relied upon me, and they have followed my instructions, and they have chosen the direction, that is the tests which I have told them, and they have got them done, and they have always been benefited by that. AG Diagnostics at this juncture has more than 1,000 tests. It has more than 30 centers across Pune and serving all the corners of Pune. With this, we are giving patients quality results, diverse test facility in shortest possible time and at affordable cost. At the same time, we have always one-to-one contact with the patient. I personally, and even my daughters, they see to it, they will talk to patients on phone, and wherever possible, they call them for a personal discussion on their problem, either on phone or to the lab, and resolve the issue by giving them the right advice. Our future plans are on following sides. One is to go on diversifying the test menu so that we give more diagnostic tests. At the same time, these diagnostic tests should be given in shortest possible time. For example, if we do test for, there are new modalities like multiplex analysis. So simultaneously 2 or 3 tests can be done together instead of doing only one test. At the same time, the cost of the test will come down. For example, in case of rainy season, if one needs to do the test for final diagnosis for dengue or final diagnosis for chikungunya or final diagnosis for malaria, one will have to do 3 different tests. Instead of that, there is a probability that at least 2 or if possible 3, all the tests can be done together and the solution can be given in one shot to the patient. So such new advances can be added in the diagnostic tests. At the same time, few more diagnostic equipment as well as the test facilities can be added so that a diagnosis of intricate and diseases and different types of advanced cancers can be made easily. Patient can be diagnosed in right time and treat at the right time.
Our executive trustee, Dr. Sanjay Patil sir, wants to say a few words. So I call up Dr. Sanjay Patil.
नमस्ते. IMA पुणेचे अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर बाळासाहेब देशमुख, आपले पितामह मेंटर डॉक्टर जयंत नवरंगे सर, सेक्रेटरी डॉक्टर अलका क्षीरसागर, ट्रस्ट बोर्डच्या ट्रेझरर डॉक्टर पद्मा अय्यर, ट्रस्टी डॉक्टर मराठे, डॉक्टर नेने, पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर अरुण हळबे, डॉक्टर मोहन जोशी, डॉक्टर आरती निमकर आणि डॉक्टर बेहरे सर आणि गोलविलकर एजी डायग्नोस्टिकचे सर्व पदाधिकारी. मित्रांनो, मी जास्त वेळ घेणार नाही. आपलं हे छोटंसं जे इनॉग्रेशन फंक्शन झालं याच्यामध्ये नवरंगे सर म्हणाले की मी दोन्ही बाजूनी आहे, म्हणून मी म्हणलं की IMA पुणेच्या बाजूनी कुणीतरी आपण बोललं पाहिजे. म्हणून मला फक्त 2च मुद्दे या ठिकाणी मांडायचे आहेत आपल्यासाठी की IMA पुणेचं जे काम चालू आहे तर याच्यामध्ये आता सध्या आपल्याकडे 3 ओरेशन्स आहेत. डॉक्टर MJ जोशी ओरेशन आहे, डॉक्टर नीतू मांडके ओरेशन आहे आणि NIO ओरेशन आहे. हे तिन्ही ओरेशन्स आणि डॉक्टर शहाडेंचं अवॉर्ड आहे. तिन्ही ओरेशन हे मल्टीकॉन मध्ये आपण घेतो आणि हे 4थं ओरेशन आहे की जे आपण आता आज पहिला दिवस आहे आणि हा योगायोग आहे की सरांच्या स्मरणार्थ त्यांच्याच वाढदिवसाला 27 फेब्रुवारीला आपण हे पहिलं पुष्प जे आपण म्हणतो एखाद्या ओरेशनचं ते आज पहिल्यांदा घडतंय. तर याच्यामध्ये नवरंगे सरांची एक इच्छा आहे की जे त्यांनी वारंवार बोलून दाखवलेली आहे मला आणि ती मला आज इथं सांगणं जरुरी आहे की त्यांचं असं म्हणणं आहे की या प्रकारचे IMA पुणेकडं कमीत कमी 12 ओरेशन असले पाहिजे. हे नवरंगे सरांचं स्वप्न आहे आणि हे गेले 2 वर्षापासून ते म्हणतायत, पण त्यांना समजत नाहीये की मल्टीकॉन मध्ये एवढे सगळे ओरेशन्स आपण कसे घ्यायचे. मग ह्याच्यावरती एक प्रोसेस चालू होती. मी पण त्याचा एक जवळून बघितलेला प्रोसेसचा भाग म्हणून मी आपल्याला शेअर करतो. तर आपल्या प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्ट ज्या आहेत मीनाक्षी देशपांडे, तिनं त्याच्यामध्ये एक वेगळा विचार करून हे ओरेशन CME मध्ये कसं घडवून आणता येईल आणि डॉक्टर पद्मा अय्यर असतील किंवा निमकर मॅडमकडून इनपुट घेऊन मीनाक्षीनी हे घडवून आणलं की CME मध्ये सुद्धा ओरेशन घेऊ शकतो. म्हणजे आपण पुढच्या 12 महिन्यामध्ये 12 ओरेशन आपण करू शकतो. तर हे एक स्वप्न नवरंगे सरांचं आहे आणि ते आपण नक्कीच पूर्ण करू. दुसरा थॉट असा आहे की IMA पुणेचा प्रवास हा आता डॉक्टर जोशी आहेत, डॉक्टर मराठे आहेत, बेहरे सर आहेत, यांनी प्रवास एक बघितला गेल्या 10 वर्षामध्ये. सर, आपण सगळे जेव्हा सेक्रेटरी आणि प्रेसिडेंट होतो तेव्हा आपल्या पुढं CME मिळवण्यासाठी फार मोठे कष्ट करावे लागले किंवा CMEs अशा छोट्या मोठ्या CMEs येत होत्या आणि टेम्पररी कॉस्टसाठी असलेल्या CMEs आपल्याला मिळत होत्या. की आज कुणीतरी मोठं हॉस्पिटल टाकलं, मी तो IMA कडे येणार आणि IMA मध्ये एक CME करणार. काही हे जे लॉजिस्टिक्स आहेत हे आपल्याला एक स्पॉन्सरशिप देणार आणि ती CME होणार. पुढच्या वर्षी तशा प्रकारची CME आपल्याला बघायला मिळत नाही किंवा दुसऱ्या टेन्युअर मध्ये ती CME होत नाही. तर आपला प्रवास IMA पुणेचा असं थोडा पुढे गेलेला आहे, जो चांगल्या वळणावरती आहे आता. म्हणून आज हे मेन्शन करणं जरुरी आहे की आपण अकॅडमिक्स मध्ये एक्सलन्स व्हायला लागलो. म्हणजे पूर्वी आपण CME म्हणजे कमर्शियल अँगलनी बघत होतो, आता आपण अकॅडमिक्स मध्ये सुद्धा एक्सलन्स व्हायला लागलं. आपल्या संघटनेच्या 2च गोष्टी आहेत, एक म्हणजे अकॅडमिक्स आणि दुसरं म्हणजे ट्रेड युनियन सारखं फाईट करणं. आपली सगळी एनर्जी ह्या अकॅडमिक्स मध्ये जेव्हा जाते ऑफिस बेररची, तेव्हा आपण बाहेरचे जे काही इश्यूज आहेत आपले, ट्रेड युनियन सारखे आमच्यासारखे लोक जे भांडणार आहेत त्यांना वेळच मिळत नाही. म्हणून जर अशा प्रकारचे जर अकॅडमिक एक्सलन्स असलेले जर प्रोग्राम आपण 12ही महिने जर केले आणि जर ऑफिस बेररवरचं बर्डन जर कमी झालं, तर आपल्या फॅटर्निटी पुढे असलेले दुसरे विषय हाताळायला आपल्याला एनर्जी आणि वेळ मिळेल. ही एक चांगली घटना आपल्या IMA मध्ये घडू लागलेली आहे. हे मला या ठिकाणी नमूद करायचं आहे, म्हणून मी या ठिकाणी उभं आहे. थँक्यू.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay Patil. मी डॉक्टर गीतांजली शर्मा, जॉईंट सेक्रेटरी पुणे IMA. प्रथमतः गोलविलकर सरांच्या स्मृतीस विनम्र अभिवादन. Dr. Golwilker sir was a devoted and dedicated doctor. He was a true visionary and an excellent academician. He brought a revolutionary change in Pune's pathology sector. Through technological advances, he took the standards to international level. But when he reached doorstep services, I think every household started knowing what is pathological lab. On a personal note, my own parents, for them, pathology lab is equal to Golwilker. आजही म्हणजे विनंती आणि अवंती इथे आहेत, मी त्यांना स्टेजवर इकडे बोलवणार आहे. प्लीज कम. या दोघी आहेत आणि AG डायग्नोस्टिक जरी नाव असलं तरी सुद्धा आमच्या घरात जेव्हा लॅब पाठवायची असं येतं तर लगेच म्हणतात गोळविलकर यांना फोन करा. म्हणजे फॉर देम Golwilker sir is always in their hearts and he is with every household of Pune. So that is the great thing about him. And I know the torch you are taking ahead in your able hands, but in your heart, sir, is always there. And I'm really grateful to you for this concept of oration, and especially today's topic of excellence in healthcare, because he was always achieving excellence. And we are trying to remember him on his birthday with such beautiful concept. So I'm grateful to both of you, and also I'm thankful to your mom, your mother, Golwilker madam, as they online join झाले. And on behalf of IMA, I wish to thank her and I wish you to convey our feelings to her. May I now request Dr. Deshmukh sir, Dr. Padma Iyer madam, Dr. Meenakshi, Dr. Sanjay Patil, all to come on the stage. Nimkar madam, we'll just a token of love from IMA Pune. And I also wish to thank all the members of team AG Diagnostic. Navrang sir and Dr. Sanjay Patil sir. फोटोच्या बाजूला.
सर इकडे या. आधी अवंती मग विनंती. Yes. Dr. Vinati. I wish to thank all the speakers and faculty today, Dr. B Mohan sir joining from Chennai, Dr. Jairam sir, Dr. Naurange sir and Dr. Prachi Sathe ma'am who is present today. I would also like to thank Board of Trustees of IMA, Dr. Sanjay Patil, the Executive Trustee, Dr. Iyer ma'am, she's a treasurer, and all the trust board members, Dr. Marathi sir I can see, Naurange sir is here. All the managing committee members of Pune IMA and all the past presidents who are present, Dr. Marathi sir, Dr. Mohan Joshi sir, Dr. Nene sir is there, Harbe sir is here, Vere sir is here, everybody who has come with their love for Golwilker sir over here. So that is more important. All the other members of office bearer, and most important is our president, Dr. Deshmukh sir. It is always his support and encouragement, but more than that, if you have noticed, his personal touch to every minute aspect of the program. हार कसा ठेवायचा, फुलं कशी घालायची, फोटो कुठे ठेवायचा, इथपासून सगळ्या गोष्टीत त्यांचं बारीकचं लक्ष असतं. So thank you sir. Our president elect Dr. मीनाक्षी. तिचा सगळा कन्सेप्ट होता, यामागचे बरेच एफर्ट्स होते, तिने ऑलरेडी सांगितलं. And I'm sure every year this program is going to be like this. So next year is yours and mine. So we'll do it. Thank you, Nimkar madam, and thank you everyone and all the delegates who have come and all the invitees who have come. And let's now move to our further program, and I request Dr. Vinanti to introduce the next speaker, please. Thank you.
Before proceeding, I would like to thank all the IMA members, Naurange sir, B Deshmukh sir, Sanjay Patil sir, Padma Iyer madam, Meenakshi Deshpande madam, Aarti Nimkar madam, and of course Alka Shivsagar madam, Gitanjali Sharma madam, for showering so much love and support on this day that I mean, our father, they are taking our care just like our father would have. So thank you so much. We will now move on to our next oration, late Dr. Jayant Abhyankar Memorial Oration by Pune's own critical care specialist, Dr. Prachi Sathe. Would like to say a few words about Dr. Jayant Abhyankar, JRA as he was fondly called by his friends and colleagues. He had worked with Dr. Golwilker from the time he was pursuing his post-graduation in pathology till his demise in a tragic accident in November 2004. My father, Dr. Golwilker, always referred to him as Mr. Dependable. He was another person who believed in quality and excellence. He was an expert histopathologist, respected by all his colleagues. He was instrumental in setting up the quality system in the then Dr. Golwilker laboratories way back in 2003-2004, Then it became the first NABL accredited lab in the city of Pune. We have conducted an oration in his memory every year since March 2005 with eminent speakers like Dr. Anita Borges, Dr. Jairam, Dr. M.B. Agarwal, Dr. Vinay Kumar, Dr. Himmatrao Bavaskar, and last year, Dr. Dhananjay Kekar having given the oration. This year, we have another such esteemed speaker, Dr. Prachi Sathe, who is Director of Department of Critical Care Medicine at Ruby Hall Clinic, Pune, and Honorary Professor of Department of Critical Care Medicine, D.Y. Patil Medical College and Research Center, Pimpri. She is a recognized teacher and examiner for fellowship in Critical Care Medicine by National Board of Examination, India. She has donned many hats in her career spanning over 30 years. She has been an international fellow in Intensive Care Medicine, Royal College of Physicians, Edinburgh, fellow of Royal College of Physicians, London, ex-president College of Critical Care Medicine, India. She is a member of startup of IIT Kanpur for mechanical ventilator innovation. She is a council member at Diction Education Society, Pune, and trustee Art India Foundation, Pune. I invite you, Madam, to give the Dr. Jayant Abhyankar Memorial Oration on Excellence in Critical Care Achievements and Challenges. Welcome, Madam.
Green color.
Good afternoon, everyone. All the ex and current office bearers of IMA, all the family from AG Diagnostics, and all the IMA members who have been attending this CME. Let me put it forward that it is really highly overwhelming for me to be here today to deliver this said oration. It was really great to listen to the newly started oration for Dr. Golwilker from a person like Dr. Mohan. It was great to hear the list of doctors who have delivered previous Dr. Jayant Abhyankar orations. And I really am humbled, and I feel I'm too small a person for this. And I feel this is a great privilege and honor for Avanti and Vinanti to have invited me here to talk to you. It was mainly because the theme was excellence, and they asked me to talk about the topic which is very passionate to me. I think India is changing from developing country towards a developed country. And let us not accept things as they were. And we have to go towards the future. We have to reach the developed country standard. And healthcare is not an exception for that. So what is this critical care medicine? Whether it has reached at some place or there is a long way to go. I had an opportunity, luckily, to be in this field right from the word go. For the last 30 years, I have been working, experimenting, and treating patients and training doctors in the field of critical care medicine. Right. So with my greatest respects to the duo for whom today's program is being held, and both of them were striving for excellence, Dr. Golwilker and Dr. Jayanta Abhyankar. Before accepting this invitation, I decided to talk to Dr. Ratnamala because I had very faint memories about what exactly happened at that time. But unfortunately, it is so that nobody exactly knows what happened. But could there have been something else that could have been done to save a life so important for the society and so important for the field in which Dr. Jayant was working? What exactly happened, we don't know. It happened right in the vicinity of Sassoon General Hospital in those days. And still, an important life could not be saved. And you can see over here, this is actually for myocardial infarction, that every 30 minutes delay from the onset of symptoms to reperfusion, 1 year mortality increases by 8%. Immediate mortality increases significantly high. Whether we had good system at that time and whether we could have worked for that. Because the golden hours in any critical illness matter a lot. Timely referrals to ICU help to achieve the best outcomes. We see so many serials on television, like Flying Doctors, for example, or we all of us as doctors try to go through these various chain to try and save time and save lives. So golden hour of trauma, as it was applicable in this current situation, same is true for myocardial infarction, for stroke thrombolysis and sepsis. And you can see here, the first hour or first 2 hours are so important to avoid immediate deaths, to give timely care. If such patients reach timely in intensive care, so many things matter, the timely recognition and timely approach to ICU for saving lives. Because ultimately, how an ICU is rated or how a specialty is rated is by the outcomes. And the simple and stark outcomes in this scenario is survival, where there are no two ways about it. There is nothing intermediate about it. So what is happening about intensive care in India? About 30 years ago, 1990 and 91, I was trained. I decided to get into critical care. And then there were hardly any centers in India to train in critical care. I went to Dr. Rudvaria at Bridge Candy Hospital because I always looked at him as a role model. And I decided, looking at him, that yes, there is a scope and there is a need to take this specialty forward. And then I did apply for international fellowship to go and get myself trained in UK. And it was Dr. Grant who had taken a word from me that I'll get trained and I'll come back and start ICU over here. So ICU at Ruby Hall, a multi-specialty ICU, was started in 1991. Till that time, it was only heart that used to be the most important organ as perceived by everybody, lay public as well as the doctors. Other organs that can kill and have life-threatening effects had yet to be understood, and needed multidisciplinary ICUs was not even in our minds. Development of the specialty in last 30 years of India has been phenomenal. Today, looking back, it was all worthwhile effort, which started at multiple places all over India. And this specialty at least has become recognizable. COVID has added to that because everybody understood the importance of ICU beds, well-equipped ICUs, and the treating trained, skilled doctors or manpower. So it was a very, very difficult journey, not only for me, but all the intensivists of that time who decided to get into this, leaving lucrative branches like cardiology, for example. And like-minded people came together, and Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine was founded in 1993. It was such a great feeling to be a founder member for this. Until that time, it was realized that who works in ICU? Anybody who is not getting any other job would for some time want to come and work in ICU. But gradually we started picking up doctors, started training them, and started giving them a career option. So critical care can be a career option was realized after a few years. Then there was there had to be conducted a qualifying exam for critical care. Unfortunately, MCI had no clue or no intention to start any examination in this. The national board luckily recognized it early. But even before that, the Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine started the qualifying exam, a diploma in critical care. It was followed by fellowship by board FNB, and now it is 3-year course, which is renamed as DRNB. It is MCI recognition that has come only in last few years, and there are centers all over India which can be counted on the fingers, which are offering DM in critical care medicine. I'm really happy that we have got DM in D.Y. Patil Medical College now. So intensivist as a specialty, who knows? Nobody knows about it. I had read one small anecdote by an intensivist in the US. He said when his mother got sick and came into ICU, recovered and went home, that was the first time she learned the word intensivist, whereas this particular doctor was working in ICU again like more than 20 years. So it is really a recognition that the intensivists have started getting only in last few years. And as I mentioned, COVID was the stark reality, where ICU doctors worked day in and day out without even thinking of their own safety. There is one very important thing about technological gap. In those days, it was not less than 10 years before any new machine or new drug was started in developed countries would come to India for us to use for our own patients, which luckily has improved a lot. Nowadays, because of internet, whatever is happening all over the world, we are aware. But still, all the technology, we still have to pay in dollars. And our patients who cannot afford even basic care have to pay for the use of those equipment equivalent to dollars. And that is one of the reasons why ICUs have got bad name. And that is where we have to come forward. And I'm really happy and grateful for Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. During COVID, when there were hardly 40,000 ventilators counted all over India, it was a push to develop it. And it was a great experience for me to work with IIT Kanpur innovators when they were coming ahead with newer ideas to develop indigenous ventilators. And it was really great opportunity to validate a newly formed ventilator in our own ICU. The first validation, we were actually just running it with artificial lung. And when we wanted to put it on patients, there had to be a healthy human volunteer. And I'm really feeling so proud. One of my fellows in the ICU, he decided to do it. He held the tubes of that new ventilator in his own mouth, and he tried various modes and various settings which we changed. And that is what gave us confidence for using this ventilator for our patients. And now such almost 5,000 plus ventilators have been installed all over India. So things are changing, no doubt about it. And that is why the title was Achievements and Challenges. Of course, we are far away from achieving anything. There was one particular study which actually overviewed healthcare in India, which said India has approximately 1.9 million hospital beds, which is so few as compared to our population, 95,000 ICU beds and 48,000 ventilators. This was at the beginning of COVID. Nationally, resources are concentrated in the private sector. Hospital beds, private versus public, you can see the numbers. The private beds are far more, but ICU beds are also much more in private sector. Ventilators also, you can compare yourself, that far more in private sector. So when we are spending like 1% of our GDP on health sector in India, what else do we expect? But again, COVID has opened up our eyes, and I hope all the policymakers also become aware of these things and the need, because till that time, talking about excellence or quality does remain like bubbles in air. Because if I want a person to come to ICU and get the most ideal treatment for himself, within 2 days, the family will come to me and say, how many more days? It is not only for the concern for the patient, but how much do I have to spend? And more important than that, very small percentage is having medical insurance. Even the government added insurance is also very small, very feeble. So I think to talk about excellence, it is most important that the policymakers decide to allow the health sector to get into the mode of excellence by supporting it. All ICUs are not the same. It is so unfortunate to go and see somebody calls to see a particular patient and you go there and see there is only a name or time board outside of ICU, and when you go inside, there is hardly anything, not even anybody looking at the patient. But awareness again is increasing thanks to patients and patient families awareness also. But all said and done, there are primary, secondary, and tertiary ICUs based on the kind of care they are offering to patient. So a patient who has got a snake bite in some very remote area has to go to primary health center or a district hospital nearby. And if it is not being managed after initial resuscitation, then it can be shifted further to secondary or tertiary ICU. And every ICU has to be with equal zest treating the patient. So intensive care medicine is, what is the definition? The best definition I like of intensive care is it is a specialty which brings order in physiological chaos. So I always tell my juniors that if you want to be a good critical care specialist, what you have to know is your physiology, which you learned in first MBBS. It is a thought process. So whether it is a primary, secondary, or tertiary ICU, the intensivist can be in the same mode because of his thought process that he wants to do something for the patient and passionate about critical care. There were lots of discussions or definitions of excellence. Being truly the best at something and raising the bar is it's in nutshell. And same thing was quoted, excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We are what we repeatedly do. Exactly that is what was quoted by Dr. Mohan as well. Excellence. Then it is not an act, but a habit. When we talk about ICU, a tertiary ICU, some pictures like this come in front of our eyes. Machines, alarms, and a lot of fast movements, the nurses and hush-hush and relatives outside the glass doors. But what is more important rather than machines and infrastructure is the man or woman behind the machine. And that is what we try to teach and train our manpower who comes with dreamy eyes to us to get trained as intensivists. When the person comes to ICU, this is what he is like before getting trained in intensive care, because he has come with the idea of applying good scientific knowledge bedside and see the patient getting better, decision making, delegating, and then he has to learn to be a team leader because he has to manage teams and 24/7. So an intensivist has to be all over 24 hours, 24/7. And then the most difficult part is the family and the relatives and the communication to family and the relatives, where the newly appointed doctor gets completely confused. He doesn't know how to talk and he doesn't know how to tackle it. And that is what needs to be taught as much as applying the scientific knowledge. But then it's not only that. Colleagues and co-management teams, other departments, everybody has to be taken together. How many times I must have called the lab in our hospital for getting the reports? Because here we are trying to answer the relatives, we are trying to take further decisions based on the lab. So turnaround times are extremely important, or point of care for that matter is also equally important. But on one side, we know that the infection has happened because of something happening in abdomen, which needs to be explored. And the surgeon is not ready to come forward because patient is on very high doses of vasopressors. And we know that the source control is most important. And in such situations, taking all the teams together and doing what is right for the patient is most important thing for us to be done bedside. Equipment and infrastructure, of course, there are no replacements for that. It is required. And as I told you, the technological gap should be met. Of course, you have to be answerable to management and administration because intensive care units cannot be run standalone. There has to be so much of infrastructure and so much of support for a good intensive care, because you don't know, a patient who comes with pain in abdomen may turn out to have perforated appendix and he requires surgery. So you cannot have just standalone. You need so many other things to support. And the management and administration may have different expectations from the treating teams. And not to talk about social pressures and social evils. The phone calls of politicians, the way we have to take and answer and give whatever discounts by the management, this and that, whatever. But how to manage that? We have to balance everything. That is what we have to do in intensive care. And as you get experienced and start becoming mature, this is what we have to do. And then we can actually turn the new trainee in the ICU into this kind of face who will be able to keep his calm and treat everyone. So what are the criteria and endpoints for assessment of excellence in critical care? For service providers, if we take it as service provider, then manage patient and family expectations is very important to meet. And what do they expect? Fast actions and treatment, survival of the patient, minimal intervention. As far as possible, doctor, please don't intubate the patient. And we have to convince that he is the one who is going to require if he has to recover. And we don't want any complications. We brought patient came walking, and how can this happen? But we don't know at what stage of the disease patient was and whether he was downgoing or upgoing, we don't know. The whole team should be good. Always patients ask me, doctor, tomorrow is Sunday, but you're coming, no? And when the patient becomes all right, they say, doctor, now you can take leave for 2 days. So the total expectations from the doctors are sometimes inhuman. Family counseling and making family comfortable is very important. And pharmacoeconomics, it is a new branch in healthcare, allied healthcare, you can say, which comes to play so much in critical care. Because if we analyze the bills, actually the hospital bills or doctors' bills are not even 5%. Hospital bills are also very less. Lab bills are pretty high, I must tell that, but lab support is also very high. But drugs and disposables make the majority chunk of that. So somebody has to really make some policies about these things and make affordable critical care for everyone in the society. As it was talked so much about NABH, I really feel proud that I was involved in the first NABH accredited hospital as Ruby Hall for ICU, to represent the ICU. But NABH has really done something good. They made us make at least SOP, standard operating procedures. And I think this at least makes a baseline thing, like clinical pathways. Your clinical pathways for any new joinee also should be known. Documentation, we really get harassed by this documentation, I tell you, but it is so important. And you are going to listen to Dr. Naurangi next, how important documentation is, he is going to tell you. So in intensive care, documentation is even more important, taking consents, counseling, not only that, even audio-visual recording of the discussion with the relatives. Handovers have to be very important because patients are there all the time and 24/7, we have to continue the care. Patient safety guidelines is something NABH has given us a lot, made us understand a lot. So that is a good thing. I'm not going to go in all the details here, but I'm just enumerating a few things. You will not know that till we started monitoring drug errors all over India or all over the world, that we didn't know that so many drug errors occur. Sound alike drugs, look alike drugs, or heard something different and wrong drugs given to patient, wrong doses given to patient. And I think this is a very important thing for excellence in critical care that we have to understand, or near miss events because of that. Nosocomial infection, we know. The word nosocomial itself is not correct in my opinion, because if you check rectal swabs of patients getting admitted in the ICU, they already are carrying resistant bacteria in their body. So it is coming from the society, but it gets overwhelmingly high because of use of antibiotics. That is true. But these antibiotics could be given for life-saving reasons. So nosocomial infection rate monitoring is something we all of us have to learn, and hand washing and the bundle care. We call it bundle care, means all the things being done together. We monitor quality indicators like average length of stay of a patient in the ICU, average length of ventilation in the ICU. And we also monitor mortality. We can't say that last month we had 20 deaths and this month we had only 10 deaths, so we are doing better. It is not so. You have to have standardized mortality ratios to be calculated. And it is not an easy thing. On-duty doctors, when they are spending bedside time, to calculate this, you really require additional manpower. to keep all this data. And this digitization is what is highly expected or desired in India. Clinical audits are to be done, whatever simple things, but whether we are doing it properly or not, to be looked at. Turnaround times, especially for the lab and radiology, we have to keep on monitoring. Critical alerts were mentioned, and they help us a lot in ICU if we get critical alerts from the laboratory. Relatives interviews. These NABH people, they are very keen on interviewing relatives because whatever we tell them, they have to cross-check with the relatives. And I think this is a very good system, and this helps us to improve the excellence level of quality. Staff safety guidelines are also equally important. But there are flip sides as well. That is time consuming, no doubt about it. Digitization is required. We don't have enough adequate manpower. I was talking to an intensivist who was working in Canada who has lots of papers. He said out of 12 months in a year, it's only 3 months he's actually doing clinical work and 9 months he's doing bench work. So no doubt papers will come where we are working 6.5 days a week. So it becomes very difficult unless and until we have people interested in research coming or people who are helping us for research. So this is one of the most important things that we learn and teach in ICU. Qualities of role models. So I was going through the literature, finding out, is there anything talked about or written about excellence in critical care? So I found 2 articles about excellence in critical care. And there they have mentioned about role models. As I mentioned, I went to Dr. Udvadia before I decided to get into critical care. And he is my role model till now. At his age more than 90, if he's called to see a patient, he will still do the bedside clinical exam. And that is something so important that I have learned from him. So what are these role models in intensive care? The important qualities which are described for positive role models are compassion. The first thing is compassion. And that is what we try to teach the juniors and the nurses who are working with us. It is always said that in my ICU, if you are on this bed, how you want ICU to run. And that is the baseline. And that is how the ICU should run. And then that will be an excellent ICU. There has to be integrity, honesty, and dedication to work, respectfulness. Even the ward boy and Mausi in the ICU would be treated with respect because what he or she is doing, nobody else can do for a patient. Today, by glorious recovery from a very bad illness, patient is going home happily, but he says, but wo bed pen time pe nahi mila. And that is where you have to reach to that level if you really want to have excellence in ICU, excellence in critical care. Altruism. Okay, these patients are sicker than me. They require my help. So simply, if I have got cough and cold, I should not stay home. No, not in COVID, of course. But enthusiasm, humility, and inquisitiveness are some of the qualities a role model has to portray for the juniors to come into this field and become good doctors. Professionalism, leadership training, which is not taught to us in our student days. Clinical competence, of course. There is no two ways about clinical competence. Teaching ability. You have to teach. You have to get the students up to the mark. Well-developed communication and interpersonal skills. Now that has become fast evolving thing, which is far more important to avoid even the misunderstandings between the society and the doctors. So excellent communication is something we have to go ahead with. So this and one more were the papers which I said I came across. The excellence, whatever the way it is defined, unfortunately, it is hard to define, evaluate, and achieve. Provide a concise interpretive review of excellence. These were the key characteristics which they mentioned. So fundamental characteristics on the right side, you can see in a nutshell: commitment, compassion, dedication, excellence, and passion for intensive care. So excellent ICU physician has some special qualities. And you can see the last line here. Critical care really tells us that medicine is both a science and an art. And mastery of both is very important. If somebody asks me, what is it that you feel made you a good doctor? So I said, what I learned in my school, how to behave with others. That is what is more important than my professional training in medical college. Excellence is highly valued within intensive care medicine as issues are very complex. They change rapidly and must be resolved quickly. Because it is said that while skating on the ice, safety is in the speed. So you have to make very fast and correct decisions. So certain initiatives I would just like to mention in last few minutes, which I feel helped us to go towards the excellence. I won't say achieved the excellence, but towards the excellence, and to make the staff sensitized towards those. So imagine you are a patient on that bed, how you want ICU or somebody to talk to you. If your mother is admitted in the ICU and on-duty doctor doesn't turn up, what do you feel? So the last minute absence is absolutely not entertained in ICU from any doctor. No one goes for breakfast till all fluid and nutrition orders are completed is the rule in our ICU. Because they should not forget, nutrition for critically ill patient is so important for recovery. So you write that first and then you go, so we'll never forget. Sensitization for pain, noise levels in ICU. A lot of patients complain about noise levels because 24/7, same thing is going on. So even though we reduce lighting level and all, in our ICU, luckily we have got individual cabins for every patient. Still there are complaints about noise level. I had actually downloaded an app which can calculate decibel, and I used to show this to my doctors at night. Addressing support staff with respect. AV counseling room was a very good initiative. Excellence through positivity. Appreciating our own colleagues. You know, madam, she was not well, her mother was not well, but still she came on duty. So even if it is just one incident, if it is reached to everyone, it gives positive reverberations. We also give support to patients outside ICU who are on the verge, or we can say MUSE, that is modified early warning signs. And if required, ICU staff will go and see the patient in the ward. So when your patient goes out of ICU, our staff is more happy than you. This is always, I tell them when I'm discussing with the family about the patient and the kind of care patient is going to receive in the ICU. ICU nurses are partners in saving lives. Very important that there is a course for critical care nursing also, which is run in many ICUs, and this is also started by ICCM. Nurses are very hardworking, but they get paid minuscule. Junior doctors can learn from experienced nurse. So much is their level of achievement. Exemplary work they did during COVID, even feeding the patients because there were no relatives. We must encourage and protect this resource, and we must encourage our own girls from Maharashtra to get into this and learn this, and we must appreciate their hard work. Some remarkable points about ICU experience: a death in ICU. We cannot make everybody immortal, impossible. So when a junior doctor comes in ICU, maybe he also hasn't seen so many deaths in his life, his or her life. So to tackle the reality of life is very difficult for the juniors also. Actually, when there was a study about burnouts in ICU, it was noted that one of the doctors gave reason that he had to give CPR for 5 patients in first 3 days. So he decided to leave ICU. So how to look at death is also very, very important. And it is not only the doctors, it is also the family members or the society, how it looks at the patient and the death, which is an eventuality in life. So what we do in ICU, we are giving dignity to life. We don't want to prolong death. We want to give quality life. So we have to find out the line between the two. And we have to teach this to the family members or other society members who are coming for the patient. Doctor, kuch bhi karo, patient marna nahi chahiye. How can the patient die? That kind of a thing in our society completely negates the spirituality which we boast about. So we have to understand what exactly we are trying to do in ICU, not only for the ICU staff, but also for the society. Family on the daily rounds and liberal visiting hours is one of my favorite experiments, which now I have done for last 20 years. Since the time we renovated ICU, we had isolated cabins for each patient. We started allowing a relative almost 24 hours with the patient in ICU for last 20 years. And then we could see a lot of changes. You can see this letter. In this lady tells that last time when my mother was in ICU, and my father was in ICU, and this time my mom was in ICU, I can see the difference. This time staying with my mother the last 48 hours of her life and remembering all the best things she did for me, holding her hand, talking to her and massaging her feet, praying God that she rest in peace and have no pain. So this is what people live with, and that is why, especially in Indian scenario, in Indian mentality, we allow this. Of course, in COVID, we could not do that. And now we may have to go back to it gradually with some restrictions, maybe. So she is thanking us for letting her stay with her beloved mother for the last precious 48 hours, in which once again, I lived 58 years of my life in her Matruchaya. So that kind of emotional settings are there, and we have to be sensitive to that. So free visitation increases satisfaction level, transparency, reduces anxiety of the family, less medico-legal problems, easier and quicker decision-making, and partnering in treatment, as nursing ratio cannot be 1:1 in intensive care in India, even though how much ever it is required. But of course, it also causes hindrance in the work of ICU staff, sometimes waste of time talking to them, increased infection rates and delayed decision-making. And maybe they are suspicious certain type of patients. But emotional attachment levels in India are very high. And I think allowing relatives to be with the patient for a longer time is a good thing. And this is, again, I found certain good articles where they say that family presence on ICU rounds. You can see here in this picture, the patient behind is actually on ECMO. And we are taking a round there. And this is her husband who is in front, you can see. And we are talking to him and we are making the decisions. We are giving him idea about the condition of hers. This is something makes me very proud. During COVID, we received an award from IMC, Indian Merchant Chamber. And it was basically for excellence in crisis situation. And in this competition, not I would say competition, but whatever awards they gave, the first one was Amul, that big a party in India, that big a company in India. So I feel in healthcare, I was very lucky and we all enjoyed this citation. This is what I told you about the ventilator. And this is a letter from IIT Kanpur. So taking care of manpower and skills is very important. Training and ongoing, because I always say that when we are going to be old, we have to have good doctors to treat us. So generating the next generation is extremely important. So the joy of work, the team spirit, do not play God. Don't think that me sangitla na. No, it is not so. We still do not know more than 90% of medical science and the body physiology. Empathy, recognizing and preventing burnouts, compartmentalization of work. When you go home, forget about this. When you are at work, forget about home. That is how we have to train the junior doctors, especially the girls. And communication and listening power. So I always feel that we have to make ICU a happy place to work and to get the job satisfaction to maintain the morality and the resilience of the manpower in the ICU. So working in ICU is like playing symphony with a philharmonic orchestra. That is what I always feel. And way to go is introducing the critical care principles even during undergraduate syllabus in medical colleges to sensitize them for that, and improving the scientific and spiritual attitudes in the society. That is what is ultimately going to help us to go ahead. So this is the team. You can see this girl, it was during H1N1 epidemic. She is a pregnant girl who had ARDS and was on ventilator for 10 days. And she recovered nicely, and you can see the happiness on the face of all the team members. But even better than that was after 2 months when she came with her baby. So something can definitely be done for deserving lives in ICU, no doubt about it. We have come 30 years since the start of this particular specialty in India, but we have way to go. We have a long way to go further. So with that, I would like to end my oration over here. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, madam, for a very lucid presentation. I would say it was both an excellent and a critical insight into the critical care unit. The man or here the woman behind the machines. Thank you, madam. I would now call upon Dr. Avanti Golwilker. to felicitate Dr. Prachi Sati.
I call Dr. B.L. Deshmukh, our president, to felicitate Dr. Prachi Sati.
For you, madam. Thank you.
Though we all believe in excellence and strive for it, we all face situations where errors can occur, and more often these are perceived than real. It's the need of the hour to be prepared with the medico-legal aspects and best practices to be followed to prevent any problems. I would like to invite Dr. Jayant Navrange to give a talk on the current medico-legal environment in India. Navrange, sir, as we all know, is a soft-spoken, humble, highly versatile person. Gold medalist at MBBS, DCH and MD, he went on to pursue LLB and is a visiting faculty at ILS Law College, Pune. He has guided more than 2,340 doctors through the medico-legal cell IMA HQ Pune. He has been actively associated with IMA Pune in varying capacities, having been the past president and currently the chairman of the IMA Social Security Scheme. He has participated in competitive marathons and cycling. He has donated blood as many as 65 times. He has received many awards, to mention a few. The Bertha Holt International Award in USA in 2002 for the rehabilitation of more than 10,000 family-deprived children in last 40 years. He's the recipient of the Best India Doctor Award by Indian Medical Association 2015 when it was first installed, and more recently the Jeevan Gaurav Puraskar. I welcome you, sir, to give this talk.
Thank you, Dr. Vinanthi, for a very nice and very touchy introduction. Right now, in the beginning, I must thank IMA Pune and Dr. Golwilker Laboratory for including me in one of the speakers on the first ever oration in the name of my friend Dr. Ajit Golwilker. And this whole talk is dedicated to him. I was listening very carefully to all the three past speakers, and I would say they really all deserve to be included in the first oration because they are top level rankers in their respective fields. Prachi Sati madam mentioned about the documentation. I also feel that it is really a sorry state of affairs, expecting doctors to have a lot many paperwork and lot much attention being required to be paid to this, rather than concentrating everything on patient care. But this is the stark reality. And then if we pay some attention to these technical details, I would say that the way out of that, not for critical care because every patient is serious, but then I would request in the beginning, of course, we'll go into what way we can face and what is the way out for this practical solution. Because basically I would love to be called a practicing pediatrician than anything else. So at least for the patients in which there is likelihood of a problem or a bad outcome or a quarrelsome behavior of the patient, you can sense that this is going to be a problem. In those cases, at least the documentation should be in detail. And you can prepare the documents afterwards, because when you're treating the patient, even the courts have gone to the extent, are you treating or you preparing the paper? So they can talk both ways. But at least when you hand over something to the third party, that documentation has to be very, very clear, and take the help of medical legal experts. That is my whole theme of today's talk. And this talk is dedicated to my close friend, associate, and most methodical and ethical pathologist, Dr. Ajit Golwilker, as a part of this first ever CME, along with the first IMA Pune Dr. Ajit Golwilker Oration 2022. So we will see. I will be brief because the time is up, and I will curtail my talk by about 5 minutes at least. So if you ask me, what is the take-home message today? What is the current environment? What is the current scenario medico-legally? Raja Ratra वैरेचे आणि रात्रसने दिवस पण वैरेच आहे ही वस्तुस्थिती आहे. So this is the single line shortcut message. I would say that what is the environment today is a terrible time, because I think we are also going through the same phase. Legally, the society is going through a change, that it was a paternalistic approach, that whatever doctor says you have to just obey. And today, whatever patient says you have to obey. And in between, the laws have come. And we are going through that particular phase where the insurance system, the support system for the doctors is yet to develop and yet to come to the standard of what has happened in UK. UK is one of the best examples. So over there, the doctor goes on practicing silently, seemingly very quietly. He's doing his work. Of course, he has to follow certain ethics and principles. He has to be within those borders. And whatever legal matters are taken care of by some other agency. So same way it should come in India. To New Zealand, it has come to some extent. US is the worst example. But then they also evolved. The politicians had to change. And that should come, that in at least 7 states, there is a capping of compensation in USA. Immediately, the first example was, luckily I was there in 1985 in Indianapolis, where it came first. And they capped it to $30,000 or $3 lakhs. The moment it was capped, the percentage of new litigations dropped by 70%. So here it is terrible compensations being awarded for a penny what the patient pays. So to avoid, I mean, that is going away from the subject, but we'll come to what is the real situation in India. Just to summarize in one slide, I would put it like this. If you don't have a case against you in the whole career, probably you did not see as many patients. So some notice you have to receive. I have received, I have gone through one case. So that means I had enough practice. So take it that way. Take it as a pride. Number 2, before praying God, pray the judge. Because you are getting conflicting decisions, even from the top level. Number 3, not only you have to be medically correct, you have to be legally correct. And this is a sentence often uttered by our beloved late friend, Dr. Mahesh Dhruv, that you have to be medically correct. There is no doubt about it. You have to be excellent in that field. But then you have to be legally correct also. And then provable legally correct. You have to prove that you are legally correct. The same thing, paperwork has become more important than the patient work, unfortunately. Then we have to practice defensive medicine. The arrogance has to go. See, today the patient is a partner in his own care. And that is one of the fundamental principles of medical ethics, which we had all forgotten when we were students in medicine, and even 10 to 20 years after practicing, that patient autonomy, that means patient decides about his own treatment, was totally neglected principle of medical ethics, which came to surface maybe about 20 years after following the Consumer Protection Act. Even that time it was not envisaged, but then envisioned. But now we are understanding, just as confidential it is there, it is the patient's autonomy. That means patients decide what is good for him, he can just say even no to a life-threatening situation, treatment for life-threatening situation. So ultimately it is his own body, it is his own decision. Number 4, be careful about 4 or 5 P's. I would say I will extend it further a minute later. Be wary of the press, that means media people. Be careful. So, madam, आपण सगळे लिहितो ना की तुमचं ऑक्युपेशन काय? ते त्यावेळी त्याचं ऑक्युपेशनल डिसीज काय असेल या पद्धतीने आपल्याला शिकवलेलं आहे. टुडे आय वुड से टेक द सेम हेल्प ऑफ द ऑक्युपेशन that you get a hint, warning bell in your mind if he is belonging to press. Number 2, your fellow physicians, ill-informed physicians. Number 3, pleaders means lawyers as patients. Number 4, politicians. They can be useful, they can be very helpful in crisis situation, but nothing comes free. When you take their help, they will get 10 times whatever they have helped you. And NRIs as patients. So only one P is not there, that is NRI. So NRI as patients and NRI doctors, relatives in Indian scenario. So these are, I think you must be experiencing quite a lot. Follow the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I think one P is missing over here is police. Same way I tell about food, that don't use the preserved food, don't use the purchased food, don't use the packaged food, same way. These are all P's, as P seems to be bad. Don't take it otherwise. Follow the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, which I will show at the end, which will be explained at the end of this talk. Unite, have the group practice and strong associations. Because ultimately, you alone, it's very difficult to fight. Particularly lose the balance of mind also. So and insurance people will come into picture after the compensation is awarded. What happens in between from the movement? So our principle in IMA Medical Legal Cell, and this is not a good thing to say proudly, but then we have helped more than 2,340 people, 40 doctors by now. The first thing is to pacify him. We are with you. Unless he has done something gross blunder. We are not there to support anybody who is doing something nonsense, unethical things. But for those who have been practicing ethical things, normally some judgmental error here and there can occur. Over there, we are always with such doctors, whether they are members of IMA or not, but we urge upon everybody to become member. Unite, then consult a medical. This is my, I think I developed it today. Dr. Bere is a veteran in this field. Because of him, I did LLB. Because of him, he started the medical legal cell in IMA Pune. This was done in 1992, before the Consumer Act came. Consumer Act came in 1986. But before it was applied to doctors, because it was applied to doctors after 1995. I call 13th of November 1995 as a dark day or a black day for doctors. So consider a medical legal expert before lawyer or mediators. That is important. Don't hand over your papers easily. माझं काही चुकलंच नाही, घेऊन जा तुला पेपर. This is the largest, the biggest mistake our doctors are doing. Those who are doing upright, I think, but this is sort of an arrogance. You could have gone wrong in papers, or something is missing, and judiciary says that whatever is not documented is not done, whatever is documented is done. So maybe sometimes from this decorated podium, I am saying openly that sometimes you have to modify your papers also, even if you are not done, because unnecessarily you are called in and then you are hauled up for nothing. Right now on 27th of February 2022, a full day 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. medical legal conference is going on in Chandigarh, where I am one of the invitees. And the theme is only one: violence against doctors in medical establishments. And just see the topics. Victims, that is doctors' perspective. I have taken few topics of them. Why we are soft targets. Prevention is the key. Walls are on your head. What to do? Aftermath of violence. Why convictions fail against violence creators. That means those who do violence in the hospitals, dispensaries. How many are successful? So far only 4. So far only 4. The law is passed in 2010. But only 4 convictions have occurred. And then they are also in appeal. So practically it is ineffective. Conflicting judgments, no capping of compensation. Our aim is not to create fear or panic, but prepare you well for any such onslaught in time. And again, the baseline will be consult an expert in the field before you even approach a lawyer. Because lawyers are doing this from the business perspective. So they would never say that you have gone wrong and take back the case and do a compromise, or other way around. To the patients, they say that you don't pay anything right now, but whatever compensation comes, give us 50%. This is going on. This is going on. So we had to change from whatever we learned in BJ Medical College way back 50, 34, 40, whatever. Everybody's time period is different. Sir has learned 55 years back. I learned 45 years back, and Madam might have learned 35 years back. But then change is the only thing in life which is constant. And we had to change accordingly, that not only excellent medical practice, but also excellence in proving it legally in case it is required. Not that I would say that you learn law, because it is infructuous, it is not possible, it is not required, don't waste your time, but just follow certain principles. But doctor-patient relationship is at its lowest ebb due to various reasons. And one reason is that we had forgotten the principle of patient autonomy. Madam was trying to say repeatedly, go into the shoes of the patient. And that also I always say, that you imagine yourself admitted on the bed, and then whatever good is there, do it for the patient. Patient's autonomy. So that was a forgotten principle. Number two, high cost of medical education. You know very well, even in BJ Medical, the fees are in lakhs now. Increasing technology means increasing cost. High cost of establishment to start your practice. Then the insurance cost is added to that. Luckily, so far it is pretty cheap. And these ultimately lead to increase in the cost to the patient. See, ultimately the money has to come from patient as far as doctor's business is concerned. So how much is the affordability? They all become below yellow card and orange card when they come for ICUs. Yellow card and orange card, worst patients, I tell you. They know their rights, but they don't know their duties. And these cards are available for 7,000 rupees. Even I know of a topmost millionaire fish merchant in Pune who produced the orange card 17 days after hospital admission. So till then, deto na doctor, kai kalji karu naka. So that is how it works. And he came in an Impala while taking back the patient. I think Dr. Bere also had this experience long before. So we have to imbibe on the patients that information is not available on all websites easily, free of charge. But I have put this particular sentence in my clinic. Information is not equivalent to knowledge. And knowledge in turn is not equivalent to experience. All these three things together becomes a good doctor. Information, knowledge, explosion, and touch with the new reality. So patients come with lot much of questions just because they have gone through Google or Safari. And they come with questions, and then we say that if you have to ask questions from Google, ask Google doctor. Why you're asking me? If it becomes too much. First 2 or 3 questions is okay. But when nonsense questions go on cropping up, we have to limit it. We say some, I say some, I work in Sadashuket. So lot many questions and least money. So they say, ultimately I say that, Madam, आई तुमचे 3-4 प्रश्न मी घेतले, थोडे प्रश्न पुढच्या वेळेसाठी ठेवूया. I say that. Ultimately I have to say that. Aggressive consumerism, patient has come and walked in. You see the advertisements done by most of the bigger hospitals, including Ruby Hall, and biggest advertisements are by Aditya Birla. Everywhere station and all this. They as good as they pretend that everything will be cured once you come to us. That is where it goes wrong, because patient comes with that mindset and something else happens. So unrealistic expectations are through media, through advertisements, and through websites. Media defamations, including media trials, and ह्याच्या पुढे आपण नतमस्तक आहोत. जवळजवळ काही करता येत नाही, वस्तुस्थिती आहे. परंतु if in 2 cases we have succeeded, that when it was posted on the blogs, we had to give notices to these. I mean, just a simple, not wakili notice वगैरे नाही, but bringing out to their India offices, and they had to pull it down. But by then, defamation damage is done in the eyes of thousands of your prospective patients. It happens. When इथे एका gynecologist सह्याद्री hospital BBOD ला practice करतात, having a practice of more than 20 years. Something nonsense was written about the management of a particular patient, and she was an IT specialist. त्यांनी त्याच्या फेसबुकवर त्या बाईंबद्दल उलट सुलट टाकलं. And the phone came from her daughter in USA. अगं आई तुझ्याबद्दल काय लिहिलंय? तेव्हा यांना कळलं काय लिहिलंय ते. And we are not looking about looking after these blogs and all every now and then. So this is how it goes on. They have to pull it down, but by then it tarnishes your image. Political agenda and systems, consumer law, activists, so-called activists. आपल्याकडे आहेत पुण्यामध्ये फार आहेत. माहिती आहे तुम्हाला अनंत फडके, Anand Gadre, they're good friends of mine, but they are doing disservice to the patient society and the doctors in particular. They are our members also. So-called patient education and awareness. आपण फार माहिती देतोय वर्तमानपत्रामध्ये, फार माहिती देतोय असं मला वाटतं. हेवी कॉम्पेन्सेशन्स कोट्यामध्ये आहेत. ज्युडिशरी अँड डिलेज. त्या डिले जो ज्युडिशियल सिस्टीम मधला आहे त्याची पेनल्टी पण डॉक्टरला आणि हॉस्पिटलला लागते, बिकॉज दे से फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ ऑकरन्स ऑफ दॅट पर्टिक्युलर इव्हेंट और नेग्लिजन्स यू हॅव टू पे 6% interest, 9% interest. The delays have occurred because of judiciary. We are eager to get the things finished. As far as doctors are concerned, we are there for immediate action. Whereas here the delays are because of so much legal problems and त्या ठिकाणी compensation मात्र द्यावं लागतं. The most important catastrophe is toll on the doctors. This is very sad. Doctors, mental and physical health and on the family. या लोकांना येताना मी असे बघितलेले आहेत याच वास्तूमध्ये की ज्या ठिकाणी the pregnant doctor rushed to the bathroom 7 times in 1 hour because of fear. I came across one stroke. He dropped. First, of course, he got it. He had a medical legal case, got a stroke in the doorsteps of Bharati Hospital. Luckily, he survived. थोडक्यात म्हणजे शेपटावर भागलं. That tension, that sort of a stress. And of course, one senior doctor died of this tension, an ENT surgeon in Pune, our teacher. And that is because of the case was going on in the national forum those days. Hanging sword on the practitioners, we are so far met with, this is what the same thing I mentioned, and one has led to even a divorce. Children and families suffer. Mental agony, shame, frustration, depression, almost uniform. Weight changes, reduced lifespan are difficult to gauge, but seems most likely, logically speaking, what is the effect of all this? ह्याच्यावर तर घाबरून जा असं अजिबात नाही. We are very sensitive people. We as doctors have, दुसऱ्याने काही म्हटलं की आपण सगळ्यांना लावून घेतो. That thing we have to learn from politicians. बोलू दे त्यांना काय बोलायचं ते सगळं अंगाला आणि हृदयाला आणि रक्तवाहिन्यांना लावून घेऊ नका. एवढंच मला सांगायचा उद्देश आहे. We wish to arm our doctors and medical professionals against the legal onslaught, I would say atrocities, and make them aware, brave and competent, and save them from exploitation. And I call this is my term, medico-legal terrorism. याला उपाय काय आहे? वर्षातनं एक प्रोग्राम मेडिको लिगलचा अटेंड करा. वर्षातनं एक प्रोग्राम अटेंड करा. एक दिवसाचा फुल. आणि फॉर्च्युनेटली और अनफॉर्च्युनेटली इज देअर ऑन 6th of March. And 6th of March is MLCon. फक्त उल्लेख झाला मी एक्सप्लेन करतो. This is Maharashtra State, IMA Maharashtra State Legal Conference. It's yearly one per day. And here we are. Features घेतो because everything cannot be completed. नवीन ऍक्ट complete ऍक्टच नवीन आलाय, that is 2019 Consumer Protection Act. and special features एकच पॉइंट आपल्या बाजूने झालेला आहे तो म्हणजे ऑल केसेस विल बी फॉट ऍट द लोकल डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल. आतापर्यंत काय होतं, पेशंटने किती पैसे मागितले त्याप्रमाणे केस पुढे ठरायचं. इफ यू आस्क फॉर मोर दॅन 1 crore it would go to Mumbai for Maharashtra. If it is more than 10 crores, it would go to Delhi. And to fight in Delhi, the lawyer takes at least 1 lakh rupees per hearing. And ती केस तर पुढे पुढे जात राहते, डेट जात राहते. आपण मात्र 1-1 लाखांचं प्रति भरावं लागतं. So in short, it used to be very difficult. Now, all cases will be at the local level, local district level. That is one good point. याचं का बरं कारण आहे? Because now they have said, the law is changed, that it is how much bill you are charged. त्याप्रमाणे त्याचं डिस्ट्रिक्ट स्टेट का नॅशनल ते ठरणार आहे. सो आय थिंक नो डॉक्टर्स बिल गोज बियॉन्ड 1 crore. अँड ऑल बिल्स बिलो 1 crore विल बी टॅकल्ड ॲट द डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल. म्हणून ते एक भाग चांगला झाला. प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर, दिस इज व्हेरी बॅड. प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर, द चीफ पर्सन इन दॅट फोरम नीड नॉट बी अ जज. आतापर्यंत जज असायचं, आता जजची जरूर नाही. आणि ते विदाउट जज जे आहेत ना, त्यांना कळतच नाही आपण काय करतो. एव्हरी टाइम दे फील दॅट पेशंट साइड इज करेक्ट. दिस इज व्हेरी डेंजरस. Another dangerous point, case can be filed as per the convenience of the patient. आतापर्यंत case has to be filed as per the convenience of the opponent and the doctor, किंवा where the things have happened. आता for example, in Pune there are so many super specialists, interventional cardiologists, interventional neurologists, neurointensivists. So they get patients from anywhere from India. The case can be now, supposing the patient has come from Patna, he can put a case in Patna district forum. How to defend this? हा मोठा प्रॉब्लेम येणार आहे. It will be surfacing in a year or two. All cases, while appealing, another negative point. अपील कर, आपल्या विरुद्ध केस गेली, खालच्या कोर्टाने कॉम्पन्सेशन दिलं, द्या, देऊन टाका 50 लाख. I had to go to appeal because most of the cases in the lower courts are always going against doctors. So you will have to go in the appeal. This appeal, you have to deposit 50% of the sanctioned compensation in the higher court and then you can appeal. म्हणजे थोडक्यात म्हणजे पहिले 25 लाख वगैरे भरावे लागतील 50 लाखाचं झालं तर. So this is a terribly negative point. Doctors and medical services are not exempted from this law. आपल्याकडे खूप ठिकाणी अशी चर्चा झाली की डॉक्टर्सचा शब्दच नाही त्याच्यामध्ये, पहिल्या ऍक्ट मध्ये पण नव्हता. अनलेस देर इज अ स्पेसिफिक एक्झम्पशन इज नॉट अवेलेबल. हा जीएसटी सारखा बेकार कायदा आहे. जीएसटीला पण असंच आहे. IMA चार्ज फॉर जीएसटी, व्हॉट एव्हर वी आर टेकिंग चार्जेस इज चार्ज 18%. सो बिकॉज एक्झम्पशन लिस्ट मध्ये ते नाव नाही, तसंच आहे. देर इज नो नेम ऑफ डॉक्टर्स अँड मेडिकल सर्व्हिसेस. ई फायलिंग ऑफ कंप्लेंट्स माकडाच्या हातात कोलीत दिलेलं आहे. आता ई फायलिंग ऑफ कंप्लेंट्स, सो एनीबडी कॅन राईट, अँड दिस इज हॅपनिंग. दिस इज नाउ फर्स्ट हॅपन विथ महाराष्ट्र मेडिकल काउन्सिल. Useless thing the medical council has done. They are our own body, but still they have done the wrong thing. त्यामुळे there is a flooding of cases. Same thing is going to happen with the Consumer Act. अजून सामान्य पेशंटला माहित नाही म्हणून बरं आहे. अनफेअर ट्रेड, आणि नवीन गोष्ट काय आणली, अनफेअर ट्रेड प्रॅक्टिसेस. म्हणजे थोडक्यात म्हणजे तुम्ही ऍडव्हर्टाइजमेंट केली, wrong assurance dila, this will also be now tackled by not the separate courts under MRP Act, but now it will be tackled by Consumer Act. So these are the new changes. Now coming back to the basic point, negligence. What is meant by medical negligence? And medical negligence is the only thing which is in our hand, which should be avoided and should be proved to be avoided and should not occur from our hands. And what is that? Negligence can be civil or criminal. त्याच्यामध्ये तीन गोष्टी येतात. एक म्हणजे एस्टॅब्लिश डॉक्टर पेशंट रिलेशनशिप, म्हणजे ज्या ठिकाणी पेशंट हॅज कम व्हॉलंटरीली टू टेक युअर ट्रीटमेंट. सो ऑल इन प्रायव्हेट प्रॅक्टिसेस डॉक्टर पेशंट रिलेशनशिप इज टेकन ॲज एस्टॅब्लिश डॉक्टर पेशंट रिलेशनशिप. जिथे कंपल्शन असतं ना, LIC एक्झाम त्याच्याकडेच गेलं पाहिजे, टाटा मोटर्स मध्ये सर्व्हिस घेताना ते ह्याच्याकडनं चेकअप केला पाहिजे, असं जिथे कंपल्शन आहे, देअर द डॉक्टर पेशंट रिलेशनशिप डज नॉट एक्झिस्ट. सो मेडिकल नेग्लिजन्स क्वेश्चन डज नॉट कम. सेकंड इज अनदर व्हरायटी इज रेस्ट, म्हणजे पहिला एलिमेंट आहे. दुसरं, व्हॉट इज द ऍक्च्युअल फॅक्ट ऑफ द केस. फॅक्ट ऑफ द केस मीन्स व्हॉट इज द थिंग विच द पेशंट इज कंप्लेनिंग दॅट समथिंग हॅज गॉन रॉंग रिपोर्ट दिला, ब्लड ग्रुपच चुकलाय, माझ्याकडे बघितलंच नाही, अननेसेसरी, मला काही लोक वाटेल ते सांगू शकतात, अननेसेसरी ट्रीटमेंट दिली आहे, रिस्क, किंवा ड्युरिंग सर्जरी यू आर लिव्हिंग फॉरेन बॉडी इन द ॲब्डोमेन. दीज आर द केसेस ऑफ negligence. Now there are two varieties in this, sub varieties. One is res ipsa locuta, means gross negligence. So wrong identification of the patient is gross negligence. Not maintaining any record of the patient, taken as gross negligence by the judiciary now. So me माझ्याकडे पेपरच नाहीत, is taken as a gross negligence. Number 3, wrong amputation of a limb. Right limb कापायचा होता, left कापला. These are gross negligences and taken as res ipsa locuta, means no proof is required. This itself, the facts speak for the negligence itself. The second variety is more common, act of omission or act of commission. That means there are two ways to look at it. It's actually the same coin. See, for example, you are not supposed to give beta blockers to an asthmatic, at least the first generation beta blockers, and or diabetics for that matter, and you prescribe propranolol for an asthmatic patient with hypertension. Act of negligence, act of commission. You should not have done. You did it, or you should have omitted that. You did not omit that. So both ways you can see. Another simple example: a primipara with a breech presentation is a standard indication for a full-term cesarean section. See, a breech primipara is a very standard indication accepted by the medical society. Now, patient आपल्याकडे यावं म्हणून लोक कधी कधी करतात. 3 गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट सांगितले सिझेरियन लागणार, आपल्याकडे सिझेरियन फोबिया आहे, नाही आम्ही तुमची नॉर्मल डिलिव्हरी करून देऊ. And then something happens to the baby, very likely birth injuries, to the mother, injuries to the cervix and the birth canal, to both. Act of commission. You ought not to have done it, you did it, or you should have omitted to do, a normal vaginal delivery. Act of commission. So this is all. Another simple example: not doing biopsy of the breast while planning the mastectomy. See, you can't just say that palpation wise I'm saying that this is CA and I'm going ahead with total mastectomy. It's not possible now. So these are the cases of act of omission or act of commission and resultant damage. म्हणजे 20 वर्षापूर्वी ट्युबेक्टॉमी झाली तेव्हापासून माझं डोकं दुखतं हे सांगणाऱ्या खूप बायका आहेत. 20 वर्षापूर्वी माझं ऑपरेशन झालं तेव्हापासून माझी कंबर दुखते. This is not a nexus between the resultant damage and what was happened. It has to be a nexus between the two. So these three things together complete the definition of medical negligence. Unless these three are there, and we as medical legal experts try to find out where is the loophole from the patient side, that's something we can pinpoint ki ह्याच्यात the definition complete होत नाही, and therefore the question of compensation does not occur. So this is how the things go on. Onus, who is to prove the negligence? It is the patient who is to prove what is the negligence. It is the patient who is to prove what is so how will he prove? He is not a doctor. He has to take the help of other experts in the field. He can go to internet and textbooks, and so many doctors are there to help. Those without practice usually have a lot of time to help these people to instigate cases against the doctors. But anyway, IMA Pune madam तुम्हाला सांगायला मला आनंद वाटतो that one doctor was from Mumbai was instigating patients की या माझ्याकडे ते पैसे घेत असेल काय असेल फी वगैरे आणि मेडिकल काउन्सिल मध्ये केस लाव, कन्झ्युमरला लाव, पोलीस केस लाव, पण रॉंग असे 100 पानांचे रेफरन्सेस देऊन तो करायचा. कोण आहे मला माहित नाही, मी पाहिलेलं नाही. बट वन डॉक्टर फ्रॉम पुणे, फिजिशियन डॉक्टर अनिकेत जोशी, ही वॉज ब्रेव्ह इनफ. मी म्हटलं की हे इतकी फॉल्स आणि बेकार कंप्लेंट आहे की वी मस्ट गो अगेन्स्ट दिस डॉक्टर. वी कंप्लेंट टू मेडिकल काउन्सिल and the medical council has suspended his registration as a doctor for 1 year on 18th of December 2021. So that is how we have to take our black ships to task also. So anyway, onus of proof is on the patient unless it is the things have happened within the operation theater or in an ICU or in the delivery room where there is no free access to the patient. In that case, it is the doctor's responsibility. And the concept of deficiency has come after the Consumer Act, which defines deficiency. म्हणजे सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे, textbook deficiency. So deficiency is not only medical negligence, but deficiency in the services which you are told. That means तुमच्या टाइमवर दिला इतके ते इतके वाजता या, and you are not available. You said that you will reach the report at such and such time, and you don't report. So not to that extent, very slight minor things are not there, but then हॉस्पिटल सेटअप मध्ये लॉन्ड्री सर्व्हिसेस असतात, कॉल बेल असते, एअर कंडिशनर्स असतात. इफ दे आर नॉट वर्किंग, दीज थिंग्स ऑल, फॅन्स. म्हणजे पहिली केस पुण्यातली जी झाली ती पुणे हॉस्पिटल विरुद्ध की कॉल बेल मी वाजवली आणि आला नाही कोणी, आणि एसीज आणि फॅन्स वेर नॉट वर्किंग. 10 लाखाची केस त्यांनी त्यावेळी लावली होती 1990 मध्ये. Fire in ICU, madam, you are not assured, you are assured the safety, but fire in NICUs is becoming very common, particularly in a COVID situation. Yeah. So that will be tackled on 6th of March. There is a separate topic on that. The one who has prepared and taken up the matter seriously, an advocate Amit Karkanis, is going to speak on that. Now, I would draw your attention to one, maybe Dr. Bere, you will be also surprised, that Bolam's principle is the most accepted principle followed by our judiciary. That means your treatment modality will be compared whether this was the routine thing by the accepted prudent doctors in that particular city in that particular time. So that is a comparison that is called as Bolam's principle. That was applied only to the management part, the treatment part. Now it has evolved over a period of time, and then Bolitho principle came that even if the medical expert opinion is there, it is ultimately the judiciary which will decide whether it stands on the test of logic. That is Bolitho principle. Both of these came from UK. Then the Whitaker versus Rogers, in which they have said that forewarning dangerous things has to be done. Croup case hoti. Croup is acute laryngitis in a child, and it lingers on for some time. Anyway, I won't go into details of that, but warning was not given that this may occur again. And then it was neglected by the junior doctors, and that's why this, when the baby died, that even negligence proves alani, but they have mentioned that forewarning of essential dangerous things has to be done. For example, penicillin can cause a reaction, life-threatening, has to be mentioned. And the last is Montgomery's case. This was again a primary and cesarean and all delayed, and they did a vaginal delivery, and both mother and baby got damaged. So in this case, they have applied Bolam's principle from history taking. Remember, history taking, first, second MBBS. History taking, clinical examination, investigations, and further diagnosis, investigations, treatment, and follow-up. So it is now same principle applied to everything. आणि म्हणून माझी हात जोडून विनंती आहे that today the view taken by judiciary is over-investigate, but don't under-investigate. If you want to save yourself, better to err on the side of over. It is exactly opposite of what teaching we have received. The teaching used to be in the minimum possible investigations, in the minimum possible expenditure, give the 7-star treatment. Now courts are saying why you did not investigate. So don't go with the patient's pocket. Don't have anything concerned with that. You have to deliver your goods. I think I should be going very fast now. The medical legal problems are increasing exponentially because of those various problems, because of consumerism, active judiciarism, the Consumer Protection Act, and information explosion. What the new dangerous trend is: hoardings, candle processions, constant adverse publicity, media trials, extortions, and so-called settling of the exorbitant costs and demands. थोडक्यात म्हणजे तुम्ही पैसे घेऊ नका मग आम्ही सगळं विड्रॉ करतो, ही युजुअल आपल्याकडची स्टोरी आहे. Another trend is to put the complaint simultaneously at multiple places. That means they will put a case in the Maharashtra Medical Council, they will put a case to the police, consumer courts, right to information, human rights, Pune Municipal Corporation, and they are the ones who give us permission to run the hospital, आणि गव्हर्नमेंट ऑथॉरिटीज. आणि याच्यामध्ये काय होतंय आता तुम्हाला म्हणून मी सांगतो, पहिली गोष्ट, आरटीआय म्हणजे राईट टू इन्फॉर्मेशन इज नॉट ऍप्लिकेबल टू प्रायव्हेट प्रॅक्टिस. ओके, इट इज नॉट ऍप्लिकेबल टू यू अँड मी. But Ruby Hall, yes, it is applicable because it's a trust hospital where there is a substantial aid. That is what they interpret. परंतु छोट्या हॉस्पिटल्सना काही काळजी करायचं कारण नाही, इंडिव्हिज्युअल डॉक्टर्सना काळजी करायचं. जस्ट एक लाईन उत्तर द्या, इट इज नॉट ऍप्लिकेबल टू मी. Human Rights Commission not applicable to private sector at all. It is only applicable to Sassoon Hospital because the custody is with the government. तेव्हा आता तरी याला काही घाबरायचं कारण नाही. Forget about these. आता माझ्याकडे एक केस परवा दिवशी आली आहे, त्याच्यामध्ये रोड साइड ऍक्सिडेंट झाला. ही एक एक्झाम्पल म्हणून देतो. रोड साइड ऍक्सिडेंट, पर्सन, दॅट लेडी अबाउट 20-24 इयर्स लेडी, पहाटे 5ची गोष्ट, कोणी झालं तिचे माहित नाही, अननोन ऑफेंडर, तिथून राका हॉस्पिटल जवळ आहे मुकुंदनगरमध्ये, तिथून येते. म्हणजे मी आणि बेरे सर बसलो या अंतरामध्ये. सो द पेशंट वॉज ब्रॉट इमिजिएटली. द RMO केम आउट, देर वॉज अ हेड इंजरी ऑन द बॅक साइड अँड द पेशंट वॉज ब्रॉट, दॅट वॉज अ डेड पर्सन. त्यांनी ट्रॉलीवरच बघितला. पेशंट वॉज सेंट फॉर पोस्टमॉर्टम टू ससून. त्याच्या पोलिसांकडनं एक नोटीस आली, तुम्हाला नाही, 304A 177 288 अशी कलम लावून तुमच्याकडे असलेलं CCTV फुटेज जे काही असेल ते आम्हाला दिलं पाहिजे, आणि ह्या पेशंटला तुम्ही इमर्जन्सी ट्रीटमेंट दिली होती का नाही. See the notice, इथे काय role, the doctors, the hospital, they came panting here. I had to just read this notice and pacify them that it is not against you at all. It is against an unknown person. कोणीच बघितलेलं नाही ना ऍक्सिडेंट. तुम्ही काय केलं, डेट डिक्लेअर केलंय. मग त्यांचा जीव भांडत पडला. तेव्हा काय त्या आपल्याला नोटीस ती पण बघायला पाहिजे. ब्रॉडली we are answerable to medical councils, consumer forums, civil courts, police, criminal law, RTI, HRC. मी बोललो तुम्हाला MTP, tubectomy, POXO Act are for gynecologists mainly, but to some extent pediatricians also. Municipal and government bodies, Clinical Establishment Act आता आपल्यावरती टांगती तलवार आहे, अजून आलेलं नाहीये. आपल्याकडे बॉम्बे नर्सिंग होम ऍक्ट लागू आहे आणि बायोमेडिकल वेस्ट, दॅट्स ऑल्सो व्हेरी बिग थिंग. लेबर लॉज, फार्मसी ऍक्ट, जनता दरबार वगैरे काही काही माहिती असायची जरूर. जनता दरबार म्हणजे हे ऍक्ट्स आहेत ते बरे आहे, दे आर ऍक्टिंग एज अ सेफ्टी वॉल. अदरवाइज पीपल टेक द लॉ इन देअर हँड अँड बर्न युअर प्लेस. दॅट इज नॉट अ गुड थिंग. आय थिंक आय विल स्किप दिस स्लाइड्स. दिस इज हाऊ द comprehensive figure of medical negligence is there. One or two aspects is the terminal care or broad dead person. I think this is required for all hospitals and particularly those who run the hospital ICUs. It is often a dilemma when to stop ventilator or ongoing but futile treatment. Sometime back Prachi was saying that we have to weigh between the two. We don't want to prolong the postponement of death. We want to have active life, if at all we can give. So the question comes, when to stop the ventilatory care, and is there a legal backing for this? And who is authorized to take the decision? Till 2017 July, it was not allowed. However, because of this common causes versus Union of India case, advance directive, this is a case of 2005, decision came in 2017. See how many years have gone, in which advance directive is allowed. And now this is an embedded principle in Mental Health Act in 2018. So what is advance directive? When the person is okay, like you and me, I presume everybody is okay, everybody is attentive, we should make an advance directive, that is living will, that what should be done with me in case I become unconscious, seriously ill, etc., etc. And I'm proud to say that just like the first consent, which is accepted throughout the country, is done by IMA Pune, this is also done by IMA Pune with support from Dr. Padma Iyer, because one of her patients was after us that give us a format of living will, and now this has been signed by more than 700 people. So all across the country, to the best of my knowledge, people must be multiplying, and this is available free of cost, and you should do it. But those in which it is not available, what should be done? Advance directives, treat me to this extent, afterwards you stop. So what should be done about it? It does not require registration, it does not require notarization, nothing. It's a very simple format. I think we have done a very good job over that, and we'll supply you anybody on email. So in case this is not available, with the doctor's permission, with the sort of a small committee saying that it is going to be futile, no use of this in all probabilities, the next of kin can give a consent, that stop the treatment. I have been informed, they can take 1 or 2 days more and they can give. So this is the end of life problems, legal problems. Now broad dead, same thing what I mentioned about this particular case. The only thing which legally has gone wrong in this, and this is a lesson, that when patient dies in front of you, outside, well, wait, this has happened in clinics also, waiting outside, it's okay condition, it just drops dead. This happened to me in Deccan Queen when I was traveling from Bombay to Pune, and the patient just dropped dead. Just VT station was left, he started becoming breathless. It must have been a heart attack. I said that his son was there, we had to stop the train. Other passengers did not allow. He died somewhere around Thane. The body was brought just like that. Actually, we should stop it, hand it over to the police. So this same hospital which I mentioned just now, when the dead body was brought, they declared their death. You are not permitted legally to shift the body. See what thing wrong has been done? They send the body for postmortem to Sassoon, which is a wrong thing. I think those who are listening can take take a message. That body, even from ICU, cannot be shifted out, has to be on the same bed. and the police should come and take possession of their body. To do a postmortem or not is not none of your business. It is the patient's, police prerogative. Indemnity insurance. Today, no doctor should practice or even go in service without indemnity insurance. Even in service, I'm saying. Now, what is that indemnity insurance? They take care of the compensation part. They do not help you in criminal cases. Criminal case is individual. Now, how much should be the insurance? General practitioners, at least 25 lakhs. Those who are simple consultants, MD, MS, etc., 50 lakhs. This is roughly I'm saying. Super consultants, 1 crore. Probably all surgeons, 1 crore. And those who are doing very complicated procedures and cancer treatments, surgeries, 2 crores. Now, how we have come to this figure? This has come through various judgments that how much is the maximum compensation awarded against a doctor individually. I'm talking about individual. The maximum compensation awarded against a doctor, even in that Amri case, that is, Stephen Johnson syndrome and Kunal Saha case, is 6 crores. But then against the doctor, 10 lakhs. Against another consultant, 30 lakhs. Dr. Udvadia was involved in that case. So 10 lakhs for one doctor, 30 lakhs for another. Rest all was to be borne by a hospital. So far, if it is 30 lakhs, why go ahead with more than 1 crore? So 1 crore should be good enough. So ultimately, the compensations can be anything, but majority share goes to the hospital. But taking a futuristic view and comparatively less premium, I'm saying go for 1 crore. On the slightest suspicion of trouble, getting notice, etc., 2 things are important in the insurance business. Having insurance is one thing. Number 2, you have to inform them if you have got a suspicion that you are likely to receive medical legal problem. Okay, so you have to inform in writing to the insurance company and take their acknowledgement and preserve in your bank locker, because they are very clever people. Insurance money ka doctor nahi hai, they are business people. They are eager to collect premium, but least caring when they settle a claim. Insurance world over. So what you should do, if you suspect that he might trouble you legally, give a written application to that insurance company at Maza insurance number amukumog, and this may come up as a medical legal problem, and take the acknowledgement of the branch in charge and preserve it well. Number 2 is it has to be a continued insurance, uninterrupted insurance. म्हणजे थोडक्यात म्हणजे माझा इन्शुरन्स समजा 27 फेब्रुवारी 2022 ला संपतो, त्यात लिहिलेलं असतं 12 midnight of 27th, even our medical insurance 27th February 2022. It has to be renewed before that. If there is a gap of few hours, if there is a gap of, I'm saying few hours, they will disown it. They will disown it. थोडक्यात म्हणजे काय, एक रिमाइंडर तुमच्या गुगल कॅलेंडरला टाकून द्या, याचा प्रीमियम भरायचाच. लाईफ इन्शुरन्सची कशी मुदत असते, यू कॅन गिव्ह 1 month लेटर विथ एक्स्ट्रा काय त्याला बर्डन ऑफ फीज, ज्याला आपण म्हणतो पेनल्टी, दे विल गिव्ह 300 rupees 500 rupees एक्स्ट्रा, दे विल कंटिन्यू इट, नॉट विथ दिस claim, not with this insurance. So always insure it and renew it well in time. Now, new laws in last 2 years are Modified Epidemic Act in 2020. National Medical Council allows for teleconsultation. That is also a new thing from March 2020. MTP amended MTP Act after 50 years because it came in 1971. Now it is 2022. So MTP changes have occurred last, I think in 2021, July. ART Act has come. ART is Assisted Reproductive Technology. That has come in 2021 December. And rules are yet not formed. So how it is going to be implemented, we don't know. And Surrogacy Act has come in 20th of January 2022. And rules are not yet formed. You need to attend one. So for all these new changes, you need to attend 1 day course every year. I think that will safeguard you, because you should be aware. Ignorance of law is no excuse. It is an excuse only for the judiciary. They say that we are not aware. Please remember, म्हणून हजारो lawyers असतात. They are supposed to, त्यांचं बघा, now you have taken the law course, they will teach you what is the role of lawyers to assist the judiciary. This is latest, this is this. So judiciary need not know the ins and outs of every law. It's not possible also. But then we have to assist and we have to be prepared about medical laws. Luckily for us, of late, 3 decisions have come from 2 high courts, 2 from Karnataka, 1 from Delhi, in January 2022, that there is harmful culture of compensation awards. Medical services to be protected. Therefore, we suggest that there should be medical services to be protected like government servants. Leniency in POXO Act and MTP Act is required. But the last word is mine, last sentence is mine, that don't take it lightly. त्यांनी उल्लेख केला, पण तसा law नाहीये. So what is the acronym? This is probably the last slide. You remember from this point of view, how will you prevent or minimize the litigations? I am not guaranteeing at all that litigation will not occur. I said in the beginning, if you have good practice, good amount of patients, you will get a notice. You should. But try to follow this. And very likely, even if the case is there, probably it will be just mitigated there and there only. Judge may not enter in that. Or if at all it is there, you will escape. The case will not be proved against you. And what are these? A stands for attention and additional opinion. And one classic example is Dr. Golwilker himself, that he used to talk to the patient, and you are also doing the same. Talk to the patient, develop that particular, it's not from business point of view at all, but then he should be treated as a human being. And over a period of last 40 years now that I'm practicing, I have come to one point that patients are correct. The complaint may appear silly, they are not able to express it, but there is a truth in what they're saying. उगाच कशाला येतं तुमच्याकडे पैसे द्यायला? So attend to the patients carefully. And additional opinion in time. When you're in doubt, additional opinion in time, not at the last stage when the patient is about to be going to the ICU and super ICU. B stands for behavior and bills. C stands for communication, and communication has to be to the point. अगळ पगळ गप्पा मारणाऱ्या लेडी डॉक्टर्स मी बघतो तिथे घोटाळे होतात. इट शुड बी टू द पॉइंट. लोकांच्या घरी जाऊन त्यांच्या घरगुती गप्पांच्यात घेऊ नका भाग. इट शुड बी टू द पॉइंट, प्रोफेशनल अँड ट्रुथफुल, but sweet, but try to be sweet. Consent खूप महत्वाचे. Consent and denial. Denial is more important than consent. C stands for compassion also. I think madam has also mentioned that there cannot be a good doctor unless you have got compassion built in your heart. Consent and vaccines, consent for vaccine also. D stands for documents. I also feel them, they are very elaborate and boring and really time consuming, but at least in those cases where you anticipate there can be a problem. And before submission, document should be thorough. Document should be thorough. प्रत्येक केस करा, ओपीडी ला करा असं मी म्हणतच नाही. 4 ओळीत लिहिलं तरी त्याच्यावर तुम्हाला केस बिल्टअप करता आली पाहिजे. Luckily, all doctors have got a very good memory that how the patient has come, you can write it afterwards also. But to build a story, त्याचं नाव, पत्ता, टेलिफोन नंबर तर माहिती पाहिजे. चीफ कंप्लेंट काय ते तर माहिती पाहिजे. कोणत्या दिवशी आलाय तर माहिती पाहिजे. So prepare a basic data. E stands for expertise, efficiency, and empathy. F and G stand for family doctor, who is very important as a mediator. And good faith. Good faith is not just good faith, Oxford Dictionary. It means, and that has relevance. It is mentioned in Indian Penal Code. It is defined under section 52 what is meant by good faith. See, it's a negative definition. Nothing is said to be done in good faith unless you are properly registered. And you have a proper degree as far as doctors are concerned. And you have a proper degree from a recognized university. हे 2 गोष्टी महत्वाच्या आहेत. तेव्हा नुसती डिग्री असून उपयोग नाही, कंटिन्यूड बेसिसवरती रजिस्ट्रेशन पाहिजे. I stands for investigations. I am learning this. That अजूनही मला पेशंटला लिहून देताना जीवावर येतं, या टेस्ट करा. जुनं टीचिंग आहे. Old habits die hard. But we are changing. And patients also become so happy that you tell about the investigations. And the investigations, not only to advise the investigations, you have to check the investigations. I have seen in a couple of cases, not only medico-legally, but even in clinically, the person who had ordered the investigation did not bother to see what the investigation is mentioning, and then missing out some simple, silly things, and you win over the patient. So investigations order kara म्हणजे legally मी सांगतोय म्हणून नाही. It should be done with an intention that I want this particular investigation, and then you have to follow it up. I also stands for indemnity insurance. It I think it is one thing is missing over here is that identification. Add to that identity of the person. Anybody can take any name and come to you. Today, Aadhaar card is at your rescue. Particularly gynecologists, I would say that MTP, POXO, surrogacy, ART, you have to be very careful that what is the real age of the person and who is that person. मी सांगू शकतो मी जयंत नवरंगे नाहीच आहे, मी अनंत कुलकर्णी आहे. I can say that, but you have to identify. अंगठा घ्यायला सर लोक जरा ऑफेंस होतात, पण इट इज आयडियल. ऍडव्हर्स मीडिया पब्लिसिटी याच्या पुढे मला काही उत्तर नाहीये. I think this is the current scenario, but you can look at the seniors and look at the people who did not get any notice so far, or at least have escaped all these litigations. Of course, जुना जमाना होता हे कारण आहे त्याला, but at the same time they must have been really fair in their practice and did not do so many adventures, and that is the reason why they have escaped. With this, I end my talk and thank the organizers once again for allowing to express my views. And I hope that at least 50% of you will attend the course on MLCon on 6th of March. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for a very detailed presentation on the medical legal aspects. As you said, it's the need of the hour. I now request Dr. Alka Shivsagar to felicitate.
Yeah, I'll call upon Dr. B.L. Deshmukh, our president. Yes, we are coming to the end of our webinar. Dr. Manisha Patwardhan from Ajit Diagnostics will be giving vote of thanks.
Good afternoon. Gratitude is about respecting the past, honoring the present, and creating a vision for tomorrow. In that line, I will first thank Dr. Ajit Golwilker, our sir, because he was an academician at heart and he always insisted that the team Golwilker Lab be a part of academic sessions. So we've been having yearly CMEs, we've been having workshops, hands-on workshops in the lab, we've been having ISO related courses, and he also started the late Dr. Jayant Golwilker Memorial Oration in 2005. I also thank him for establishing and nurturing a very good relationship with IMA Pune. I have seen it firsthand with Dr. Halbe and Dr. Navrangi, etc., visiting the lab over the years. And I thank IMA Pune today for partnering with us for today's program, as well as we have already strengthened the relationship with them, and we will be having more programs over the years to come. I thank team AG Diagnostics, IMA Pune team, the IT team, the infrastructure team for the smooth proceedings for today, and the speakers for today. So thank you, Dr. Jairam, Dr. B Mohan, Dr. Prachi Sathe, and Dr. Jayant Navrange. We had given them a very short notice because this program, from its suggestion to conception to execution, it was just about 4 to 5 weeks. And despite this, all of them said yes immediately and delivered excellent talks. I also thank all the delegates, the ones who are with us here as well as the ones who are attending online. Thanks to the COVID situation easing out a little, maybe life will now become normal and we will have more full auditoriums in the next ongoing programs. Excellence was the theme for today. So the best expression of our gratitude will be if we pursue excellence as persons, as healthcare professionals, as a fraternity, and as a nation. Thank you once again, everybody, and have a good Sunday evening.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha. On behalf of IMA Pune, I wish to give vote of thanks to the team AG Diagnostic and to Dr. Vinanti Avanti and everybody. I would like to thank all the faculty and delegates who had joined online as well as who are present. She said that the auditorium was much full today. Almost the full auditorium, physical auditorium we had, and more than 188 delegates had joined online. So it was a very successful program. I would like to thank Dr. Sanjay Patil, who was the MMC observer today. I would like to thank all the trust board members of IMA Pune who are present again online, offline, MC members and OB members who are present physically as well as they who have joined online. Special thanks to DigiShield who had provided the platform. Today's was a hybrid conference, so it was a great platform and it was done very successfully. My special thanks to Mr. Mirajkar for the audio-visual assistance. It was a great work done. Special thanks to Vaishnavi caterers who had provided very delicious breakfast in the morning. And last but not the least, our IMA staff. On whether it is Saturday, whether it is Sunday, whether it is weekend, please come. Aniket, Naudikaka Sagaya. Yeah, special thanks to this team of IMA staff who is the real support system for us. My, त्यांनाही बोलवा ना सगळ्यांना, सगळे या काका या, या काका, बाकीचे कुठे गेले? And special thanks to, of course, Dr. President Deshmukh sir for all the encouragement, support, and the whole team of OP. Thank you very much. It was a great success. And let's meet for 6th of March when we are having for MLCom next Sunday.